Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. It is Monday, April 20th. We are live. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We got about a week and a half left of April. And then we'll be in May, which is crazy. This year is moving by pretty quick. We are almost towards the halfway part of 2026. But we're here. We're live. And we got a lot to talk about. The NASDAQ has had 13 green days in a row as per the momentum that we saw on Friday. The question is now going to be, can we continue that run? Which right now we are not, if the market were to close at this moment, because we are red, and there's a reason why we're red, outside of the fact that we're up a lot over the past 2 weeks, probably a little bit of a healthy pullback, but there's also some substance in regards to this Iran war that can be taking us down. Question's going to be if the market can once again overlook it. I mean, futures were way worse last night. We were down about almost 1%. We're now down about 0.5%. So we recovered about 50% of the losses that we had last night from the futures. Oil was at 89 last night. It was up about 70%. Oil right now in the pre-market is at 88. It's still pretty much at those same levels, but at least the equity markets have not been hit as hard. So we're going to see. We're going to see today, is there a world in which this market can once again continue its momentum? 1992 was the longest streak for the NASDAQ. 19 days in a row. We're at 13, and hopefully we can get 14. But we're going to have to work through a lot of stuff throughout the day. We got a bunch of different headlines to go through to figure out if this rally has the ability to last. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. It is what it is, right? Like, we had a really nice, good 2 weeks, and we'll probably go back to a little bit more choppiness. But if we can keep it going, obviously it would be really fun for everybody. S&P 500, 707 right here in the pre-market, down about 0.33%. Again, not as ugly as what some people expected based on the news of the weekend that we'll get into. NVIDIA down 0.5%, Apple barely down, PayPal down 0.5%, Palantir, SoFi down 0.5% to 1%, IGV barely down, Meta down 1%. Like, it's not, I mean, even Bitcoin, right? 76 to, it hit 78 over the weekend, but now we're at 75.3. It's not that bad, you know? Bitcoin's still holding on to that 75 range. This 2 weeks ago, this was at 63. So it is nice for Bitcoin to at least be holding these levels. The Qs as well, down about 0.27. When the market opens, we're going to see if we can overlook some of the stuff that has happened over the weekend. So that's what we got. Good morning. Hopefully everyone had a great weekend. We got a lot to talk about, a lot to get into as we get into the second to last week of April. I was not live for the futures last night, but overall futures, I mean, again, they painted an ugly picture. I don't know how ugly of a picture that will translate to reality when the market opens. Well, look, it was ugly. It was ugly for a reason. We'll talk about why it was ugly, and hopefully the market has a shot to overlook it. All right, let's get into it. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Gary, Josh, Kevin, June, Kyle, Tracy, Aaron Swing, Tesla Granny, good morning. Thank you for being here. We did have a Trump executive order over the weekend with Joe Rogan in the White House, where he essentially is now a champion of psychedelics and decriminalizing them. So there you go. You got the psychedelic tickers. We'll talk about them that are taken off, which is amazing. But yeah, if you were in any of those names, congrats. Cycle Time, what's up? Steven, Jason Scott, Danny, what's up? Lee, Fod, it's Rach. Thank you all for being here. Gene, what's up, man? All right, let's get started. So first thing we'll start off with is one of the stocks that's moving pretty ugly in the pre-market. ASTS, unfortunately, they had a successful launch, but their satellite got lost in orbit, which made the launch unsuccessful. So Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket on Sunday failed to put an ASTS satellite in the correct orbit. The incorrect placement was too low to sustain operations, and ASTS will be forced to have the satellite burn up in the atmosphere. That stock is down about 10% in the pre-market. I did buy some ASTS on Friday. It was a little bit of a gamble for the launch. I thought the launch, I didn't think a second order of payload for a satellite would be lost in space. But then again, that's why Blue Origin is not SpaceX. And that's what you got. This is really Blue Origin's fault more than it is SpaceX. And I think people are just shocked that this thing actually happened. Down 12% right here. I, just like everyone who bought Netflix before earnings, I am now a community member for ASTS. So here we go. My honest thoughts on this, and again, I don't know the most about the company,
is that, look, at the end of the day, one failed launch, A, they have insurance, so they'll be able to protect themselves from the financial damage on this. B, I don't think this disrupts the entire thesis, right? One lost satellite in the midst of all these successful launches. Yeah, the stock's going to react, obviously, because the stock is the stock. And if Rocket Lab had a failed launch, the stock would be reacting like that as well. Just like when SpaceX goes public and when they have a failed launch, I would imagine SpaceX stock will be volatile. And all three of those companies have had failed launches before. But I don't think that takes away from the actual thesis. And so I think the thesis is going to be fine. I don't think there's going to be any broader issue with ASTS. I still think playing it for SpaceX IPO, this or Rocket Lab, I do think there is a world in which when SpaceX goes public at $2 trillion, which, by the way, it's definitely going public at $2 trillion. I was talking to another VC friend over the weekend that said, dude, if you want to get into SpaceX, I can get it to you at 1.4. And I'm like laughing. I'm like, oh, thanks. That's such a nice discount. He's like, well, it's going to go public at 2. So if I can get it to you at 1.4, he's like, but there's going to be like a 20% carry. You're going to have to hold it for 5 years. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not. I'd rather buy ASTS or Rocket Lab in the public market. But the point is, it's going to be a massive IPO. And whatever thoughts you have on the valuation of the IPO, I do think there's going to be proxies, and ASTS and Rocket Lab probably are going to be those proxies. But yeah, that stock down 12%. I'm curious to see if people buy the dip. It was worse last night. It was almost $70. Now it's at 74. So we'll see how ugly this one gets. But Blue Origin didn't even say sorry. Yeah, I mean, the space mob was pretty pissed at Jeff Bezos this weekend. I was talking to a couple of them last night. It is what it is. This stuff happens. So ASTS down 12%. Now 73 was the low on March 30th. So today, if the market opens and it actually goes below 73, this would be, or sorry, 71.85 was the low. This would be a new low after a macro drawdown on all stocks. So if this gets that bad, I just wonder, do people step in? Is it a buying opportunity? Are people leaving? Have they lost faith? So we're going to find out in the next 40 minutes when the market opens, and we'll see what ends up happening to ASTS when this goes in. Evan says, I am also a BMR community member. Yeah, look, sometimes you join the community of these different names, and at the end of the day, you got to figure out if you want to stay in that community. Adobe right there, that's up 2.3%. I don't know if there's a headline on Adobe, just pumped to 256 before we get into all the other stuff that we have to get into. Adobe, let's see. They did get hit pretty ugly on Friday because of the unfortunate, what was that thing? It was Claude Opus 4.7 screwed them with a new design tool. What's the headline that just spiked them? Adobe's launching CX Enterprise, an AI agent platform for business, and partnering with 30 companies, including Microsoft, Anthropic, OpenAI, NVIDIA, and AWS. Okay, so you've got Adobe trying to partner with the company that's killing them. Anthropic, Microsoft, AWS, OpenAI, and NVIDIA. I don't know if a partnership is enough to withstand the momentum on Adobe, because that momentum on Adobe is pretty ugly in regards to the narrative that they are getting commoditized. But nonetheless, I mean, the street's been waiting for AI agents, and Anthropic, quite frankly, has been crushing it with their different AI agents. So maybe if Adobe can incorporate AI agents at scale, and these partnerships with these 30 AI platforms and companies actually allow them to do that, maybe that's something the street likes. 250 right here. This thing was at 229 a couple weeks ago. Yeah, if you can't beat them, you join them. And then there you go. Maybe that one helps Adobe. We did pump to 256 like 5 seconds ago, now back at 248. So let's see if that holds. I mean, at the end of the day, they should be working with Anthropic. I'd rather think shareholders want them to work with Anthropic versus like be massively competitive. And so this one might not be the worst thing about it. A partnership, aka let us just put AI companies next to ours in a sentence. Yeah, that also might be the case as well. Again, you got to be selective with the software names that you pick here. I think there are some gems that are deeply undervalued, and there's some other ones that, narrative-wise, they're just going to have to really put up the growth for the street to feel that their growth trajectory is still intact. So that's what you got on Adobe. That's up 2%. ASTS, it is down 12%. Let me know if people are buying the dip on ASTS. If you're selling, you're getting out of it, selling calls, selling puts here, which maybe the premiums are better. If you bought puts before the Sunday launch, those are going to print this morning. Obviously, if you have short-dated calls, I think you just got to wait it out a little bit. I do think the SpaceX IPO is going to be a pretty big catalyst for space in general. Now, maybe it's to sell the news, and maybe it's not a catalyst. But we'll see when the market opens if people end up buying that dip on Mr. ASTS. AMD, is that running right now? AMD, wow, 279 pre-markets. AMD, one of the only green semiconductor names that's getting a bid, and even NVIDIA is not getting green right here. Although NVIDIA still at that $200 level. I think NVIDIA is going to fight for 200 now. They tried to take her down last night. She recovered in the overnight markets. Let's see if when the market opens, she holds above 200. She closed at 201. If she can just normalize that $200 level, that would be very nice. By the way, before we talk about the war, MRVL, that is up a lot, 5%. It was up 10%. It was at 151. Now it's at 147. Apparently, the information reported that Google will be partnering with MRVL to create custom TPUs. So you've obviously had Google working with Broadcom for these TPUs. MRVL now is entering the picture. And if they're going to be successfully able to execute with Google on the ability to create TPUs, then I would imagine MRVL is going to get a lot more business. KeyBank reiterated their overweight price target on Google at 380. The information reported Google is in talks with MRVL to design 2 AI inference chips, a memory unit to work alongside TPUs, and a new TPU built for inference. The report says Google may produce nearly 2 million of the memory units with MRVL, and that will obviously be something that's more bullish than not for MRVL. MRVL's at a hell of a run, by the way, hell of a freaking run, because this thing was at 90, but year to date it's up 50%. It was at 78 on March 4th. So basically you're talking about a double roundabout since the beginning of March. And it's consistent with the semiconductor theme. SMH is at all-time highs. Like if you've picked the right semi, obviously all semis have done really well, Intel, NVIDIA, AMD, etc. But if you pick the right semi, like a MRVL, the gains have just been pretty monumental. Broadcom back above 400. So the semis are in the right area right now. Okay, the war. So what happened over the weekend, and why is the market potentially looking over it? So what happened on Saturday, honestly, I didn't even pay attention to this. I kept up with what was happening, but emotionally, I was just so done. And I'm like, I think both sides are trying to get married, and they're having that last minute anxiety where they're both thinking of leaving each other at the altar. And that's why they're crashing out. But at the end of the day, they want to get a deal. And so all of this stuff that happened over the weekend and futures going down for it really was just a story we've seen so many times. And already in the pre-markets reversing because we got new headlines about why, it might not be that serious. But this is what Trump tweeted on Saturday. Today, an Iranian-flagged cargo ship nearly 900 feet long and weighing almost as much as an aircraft carrier tried to get past our naval blockade. It did not go well for them. The U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer USS Speransk intercepted it in the Gulf of Oman and gave them fair warning to stop. The Iranian crew refused to listen, so our Navy ship stopped them right in their tracks by blowing a hole in the engine room. Right now, U.S. Marines have custody of the vessel. It is under U.S. Treasury sanction because of their prior history of illegal activity. We have full custody of the ship, and we are seeing what's on board. So basically, the Iranians said, hey, get rid of the blockade to prove that in good faith you are ready to negotiate the second round of talks, and we can come to a deal. And Trump said, we're not going to get rid of the blockade because we don't trust you guys, and so we're going to keep the blockade on. And so the Iranians got mad and they said, well, okay, we're not going to open the Strait of Hormuz, which again, they did open on Friday. That's why the market really had that big of a rally. Trump tweeted they're never going to close the Strait of Hormuz again. And so you had this massive rally on Friday because everyone was like, okay, cool. The foreign minister right there tweeted that the Strait of Hormuz is now going to be open, but it was under the condition that the blockade would stop and the U.S. wouldn't get rid of the blockade. And then you had a bunch of different stuff over the weekend on, are they going to negotiate? Or the second round of talks off? Is Trump just getting ready to attack? You had a lot of the Iranian media saying that we felt the whole negotiations in April was a fraud and that ultimately Trump is actually trying to attack us and he never really wanted a deal. So you have a lot of sides going back and forth. This morning, the AP reported that negotiations are on. Pakistan has confirmed that the second round will be happening in Islamabad. I believe Witkoff, Kushner, and Vance are on a plane right now to go to Pakistan to have these talks. And that's why I think the market is kind of recovering from this and ultimately doesn't believe it's going to be that bad. So Iran may send a delegation to Islamabad this week for a second round of talks, according to 2 Pakistani officials. Speaking anonymously, they expressed cautious optimism that both Iranian and U.S. delegations could attend. Pakistan will not disclose travel details for security reasons and urged the media to avoid speculation, noting the situation remains fluid. There is a world in which, yes, we don't get a deal. Trump was pretty confident on Friday we would get a deal by the end of the weekend. We did not get that deal. We're now initiating new talks based on the back and forth. But I am still pretty optimistic that we are not going to have some crazy fighting back and forth. And we are going to get back into what we were at before March 30th. I don't think that's the case. I think the market also is pricing that in as that's not the case. And so far, the market has been right for the past 2 weeks. Everyone that said World War III, the market was going to crash, it's not going to play out, all of this is fake, they've been wrong. So far, they've been wrong. Now, do we have a deal yet? No. But if the contingency of not having a deal or the byproduct of not having a deal is the market crashing, that hasn't happened yet, which means the market is telling you we believe there will be a world in which this deal ends up happening, even if it takes more time. And I think, it could take another couple months and we would still be happy that we get a deal versus no deal happening in the first place. Oil, unfortunately, has spiked up. Now, it is still well below the levels that we were at a while ago, right? We were at 117. Now we're at 89. But it is higher than what it was on Friday when we were at 82. And so, yes, it is a bit ugly and a bit of a weird situation, but overall, you're not seeing the market get that upset. Now, maybe when the market opens at 9:30, then we're going to see the real players come in and start selling and basically calling BS on this market. But it should have happened in the future, should have happened in the overnight, should have happened in the pre-market, and it's just not happening. S&P barely touched. I mean, if the S&P were to fall 1 or 2% from now, I don't think anyone would be upset about that. I think you'd be like, yeah, we rallied 10.7%. Of course, we're going to have a little bit of a pullback. That's just natural. That's probably just healthy, although it would ruin the fun of this rally. But we would all accept it and not think twice about it. So if that's what happens naturally, it's fine. If it happens because of this Iran war, it'll be more annoying. But I don't know if we can guarantee that, the dip that some people have been waiting for is going to happen because of the Iran war. And if it doesn't happen, then good. We should be in the right situation. So we'll find out. I imagine we'll get more details throughout the day, hopefully from multiple news outlets explaining what's going on. But until then, the speculation is that there will be more talks, and we just have to see if those talks are going to end up being productive. Lilly just bought a company for $7 billion. Lilly is down 0.19%. Kelonia Therapeutics for $7 billion in cash. I don't think that's a public company. Kelonia Therapeutics, that's in Boston. No, it is not a public company, private company. $7 billion. Lilly just bought them out. Okay, there you go. That's what you got with Lilly. Meta and CBRE announced a program to recruit and train thousands of technicians to build Meta's data centers in the U.S. CBRE, the group, that stock is up about 0.65%. The big news on Meta on Friday, literally right before the end of the day, was that they're planning to fire 8,000 people and lay off about 10% of the entire staff. So that's why Meta got that bit of a boost. Again, Meta barely down pre-market, down 0.69%, nothing that crazy. It was up 1% on Friday. It's made a massive move since 5/20 on March 30th. So if they're going to now engage in layoffs, Snapchat also laying off 16% of their workforce. That's what got this stock to go up from $3.50 to $6. It's now at $5.90 pre-market. Amazon already did layoffs. Oracle already did layoffs. So you're getting a lot of those companies kind of becoming more efficient, and that also could be, something that's beneficial more for their stocks. Palantir right there, down about 0.65% in the pre-market. Robinhood got an upgrade this morning. That upgrade is to $115, and I believe that's from Mizuho. Mizuho, 115 to 105. Their argument is that trading activity, we think, could rise about 3%, and the SEC is ending the $25,000 day trader rule. Robinhood's also had a massive run, and it's been able to kind of normalize being above that $80 level, $89.75 in the pre-market. The interesting thing about Robinhood is I found out over the weekend that good old Schwab, which was supposed to never allow prediction markets because those are degenerate products that they wouldn't offer to their clients, well, looks like the CEO just said that they will be offering prediction markets soon to their user base.
Well, we are closely following some of the developments from the CBOE and other participants that are using existing structures to come out with prediction markets, and they're treating them essentially as a binary option. And so if the CBOE were to come out with that, and I think they've publicly communicated they expect that sometime in the fall, that would be a very prudent way for us to be able to offer prediction capabilities to clients. They would be financially related around financial events and financial markets. They'd be in a structure that our clients understand.
Now, to the Schwab CEO's credit, they are not going to allow sports prediction markets, which is a fair pushback, right? That they're allowing prediction markets, but only on financial events, not on sports. So it takes away from the gambling element of it. However, I think people forgot what a prediction market is. It's either you win everything or you lose everything. It's either zero or hero. There's a binary outcome, yes or no. So agreed, sports is a much more excessive form of gambling at the end of the day, right? That's just objectively true. Let's take sports out of the equation. If you're still offering clients the ability to bet on an event or hedge against an event, and there is a yes or no outcome, it's almost like a short dated call option. That's essentially what it is, whether it's sports or it's, betting on if a hurricane is going to come and you want to hedge it with like insurance contracts. And you're either going to lose everything or gain everything, which at the end of the day, if the idea is you lose everything or gain everything, it's a gamble, then I'm sorry, but that's gambling. It might not be a more degenerate form of gambling, like betting on a playoff game in sports, which again, people push back and say if they've done a lot of research, then they have a better chance of, being right on that bet. But at the end of the day, it's a gamble. It's yes or no. You either win everything or lose everything. So to me, if Schwab is like, yeah, we're going to offer these prediction markets to our clients, even if it's not sports, getting rid of sports is not getting rid of the gambling aspect of it. And the reason they're doing it is because the prediction markets volume in general is growing. The Kalshi founders did a podcast last week, and they said they are seeing institutional level block size trades of up to 20 to 30 million on various different events. Schwab wants a piece of that. You're going to have trillions of dollars of volume over the next decade in these prediction markets. It would be stupid for Schwab to not get a piece of some of that volume. And if that, volume starts superseding volume in other different asset classes and Schwab has no exposure to it, I mean, they're just going to fall behind. So for all the people that made the argument that, Robin is degenerate for offering this, they're just not, right? There's other platforms that are doing it. And the Fidelities, the Schwabs of the world, I imagine they're going to be much more inclined to do it, even if they're not giving pop culture and sports prediction markets to their user base. Now, speaking of Fidelity, they also had some crazy controversy over the weekend. Apparently, Fidelity is now going to be charging you a $100 fee for purchasing certain types of ETFs. And it's called a service fee. And this has been news for a while, but it kind of started going viral over the weekend because of all these different funds that Fidelity will charge you $100 if you want to buy one share of. I don't think it's that big of a deal because a lot of these are super leveraged ETFs that not a lot of people trade, or they're just ETFs that are not that active. But there are some ETFs which are in there, and it's a little confusing. Like Dan Ives's Ives 30 ETF, which does have over $1.5 billion in AUM. That's going to be subject to this $100 fee. And there was a bunch of other ones that I was looking at where I was like, what's going on? Why is Fidelity, charging this much? Robin had kind of caught on to this, and I think they're going to come out with a promo pretty soon for people that use Fidelity to leave Robinhood, as Fidelity started getting clowned over the weekend for doing that. But most of these ETFs, I don't think people even buy, or at least Fidelity customers don't buy. So, the $100 fee is not that aggressive. But there are some that are, pretty popular ETFs, and they're, getting charged a $100 service fee. I don't know about you, but I am just too conditioned based on commission-free trading to ever pay a single penny to buy or sell a stock or an ETF. So there's no way in hell I'd pay $100 just to buy a share of an ETF. And I wonder, maybe that's a catalyst for Robinhood, and they can compel some people to leave and end up joining Hood. Senior Iranian official to Reuters: positive efforts are underway by Pakistan to end the U.S. blockade, ensure Iran's participation in talks. Okay, so if the Pakistanis can convince Trump to get rid of the blockade, which quite frankly, if Trump had just gotten rid of it on Friday night, I know the optics didn't look the best, but if he had just gotten rid of it, I do think they would have had friendlier talks over the weekend. I guess for whatever reason, he wants to keep the blockade, but if they can convince him to just have it settle down and not be an obstacle here, maybe that opens the Strait of Hormuz, and maybe that gets a better chance to have discussions. I mean, the fact that, the U.S. shot at an Iranian ship because the Iranian ship shot at them, again, there was a little bit of a real military confrontation right there, means there's, not the greatest of, I guess you could say, feelings between the two right now. So they're both going to have to show some sign of good faith, whether it's opening the strait or ending the blockade, even if it's for a couple of days, to allow the negotiation to fully go through. So I guess we'll find out throughout the day if Trump agrees to that and if these negotiations can begin. NVIDIA right there down about 0.69%. Apple down 0.15% in the pre-markets as well. June says, I get mad when I get a service fee for a few pennies. Yeah, I think people are too conditioned at this point to not have to pay for this stuff. Is oil going down? Oil, let me check real quick. And then I want to talk about some stats on this bull market. And I want to explain to people how historic this rally has been. I mean, when you look at some of these numbers and these charts, it really makes you realize we are living in one of the best 2-week rallies that we've seen in the stock market in a very long time. And now we just want to see if it can continue. Oil, 86. It was at 89 10 minutes ago. That is nice. Coming down a little bit. Coming down a little bit. Oh, by the way, Kevin Warsh is going to be testifying, I think tomorrow. We'll be able to stream that live at 10 a.m. So this will be the first chance we get to see Kevin Warsh. He disclosed all of his financial disclosures, and he is worth about $150 to $250 million. He has a lot of equity stakes in a lot of stuff. I did some deep diving over, Kevin Warsh over the weekend. The guy really, from my research, he really believes in AI as a deflationary force. And that's why I think he's invested in so many of these AI startups. Like he's invested in like 70 different AI companies. All of them, because of that equity stake, I imagine he is incentivized for the stock market to do well, for NVIDIA to do well, for AI to do well. So you have that portion of him on your side. He's invested in a ton of crypto stuff. So he's probably incentivized to have crypto do well. But I think he's also of the mindset that we need to keep rates low because AI is going to be so deflationary in regards to the cost of services, labor, and the abundance of products and goods that are out there, that the inflation narrative will take care of itself. And if that's the mindset he has as leading the Fed, which, as he answers more questions from Congress, we'll get a better understanding of that over the coming weeks. We might be in for a lot more rate cuts than we're thinking. And that's what my preliminary research is telling me. Obviously, it's going to be tough to justify it and convince all 12 Fed members to be on his side. But if he runs the Fed with the understanding that AI will lead to massive deflation over the long term, and he's like physically invested in all these companies that are going to benefit from AI, so he has like this legitimate incentive to believe that that's going to take place, then maybe we get a lot more rate cuts over the next couple of years. And if we do, stocks are probably going higher. Reuters, Iran is positively reviewing participation in peace talks with the U.S. No final decision has been made yet. More details on the Pakistan call to be released later. I think we're going to get a deal, folks. I think we are. I really do. I know a lot of people still think there's never going to be a deal and we'll be fighting an endless war for the next 10 years. I just disagree with that. I really disagree with that. I think all this fighting back and forth over the weekend is just last-minute anxiety for both sides to get to a deal, but they both want a deal. Iran wants to unfreeze their assets. Iran wants sanctions relief. They want to have ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz to make money. Trump wants oil to go down. He wants to focus on the economy for midterms. He doesn't want to get into a World War III. I think both sides will come to a deal. And the market has obviously priced that in, and hopefully, if that continues to take place, we should be able to actually get a deal. All right, let's look at some of these stats on this bull market and how this is turning out. So first of all, we talked about this last week. A couple of different things I want to show everybody. But number one, look at this. This is the call put directional ratio from an institutional options perspective. This is not retail. Since January 2025, the last week of April, you can see that chart go vertical. You have a lot of institutions trading calls, which is good because they're getting to be more bullish. And that bullish level of momentum via the derivatives market just adds a lot more leverage to the gain. So you're seeing more and more excitement from the institutions loading up on calls, probably also trying to gain excess exposure if they were short equities by the long side of the calls. Next, the NASDAQ gained in price for 11 days straight, and the SOX index gained 20% in 10 days. This momentum combination occurred twice before. It was followed by gains of 27% in 154 days and 27.5% in 190 days. In both instances, there was a 0% pullback in the S&P 500 index. So you're seeing the NASDAQ compared to the SOX, which is the essentially semiconductor sector. And when you put the NASDAQ on top of the semiconductor sector in regards to the level of gains they've had in the short amount of time that they've had those gains, the past two times that happened, which were 2009 and 1987, 250 days later, we were up almost 30%. So call it about half, basically a year later, maybe like 8 months later, we were up 27%. So you got a lot more stats showing that this momentum is likely going to continue. And if it's not slowing down, then history proves us that, the green could be historic more than it even already has been. Money market funds, it was the largest outflow ever last week. Now, a lot of that probably has to do with taxes as well. So we'll see what that normalizes into next week. But 175 billion left. I mean, we've also had taxes in 2025, in 2024, in 2023, 2022, 2021. You don't see these massive drawdowns from the money market funds in all those years during this week. Maybe because we didn't have a massive epic V-shape in a lot of those years that's now causing people to take money from the sidelines and also put it into the equity markets. And so I do think those money market funds transitioning to equities are important, even though you had people pay their taxes. Also, it's not euphoria. How do I know that? Take a look at this chart. This is after the rally that we've had over the past 2 weeks. Everything is still basically red from their 52-week highs. Google still down 2%, Microsoft still down 24%, Nvidia still down 5.3%, Apple still down 6%, Amazon down 3%, TSM down 7%. Like, there's not many green names on this entire chart because everything was so much higher back in October and November when we like really put in that short-term top, and we've still have a lot more room to recover. So the fact that, you're seeing the entire market basically be red, even though we've had that big of a run, means I don't think we're in euphoria. The fact, the very few names on here are bright green, and maybe that happens over the next coming days if we end up going green. But if we don't, then yeah, I think there's still opportunity where people think, okay, we can buy because these are not euphoric prices and they're not deeply overvalued. And part of a way to make sense of these prices and if they're overvalued or not, look at the NASDAQ forward PE ratio. It is still, after the 2-week rally we've had, below the 10-year average. Because there's more of a assumption that the forward earnings will continue to grow. And it's up to these tech companies. This week we have Tesla to be able to prove that they can grow. But if they do, then yeah, it's not going to be as ugly as I think people may assume. How is that possible if the S&P 500 is at all-time highs? Well, the S&P is at all-time highs, but individual stocks have not hit those all-time highs, right? So they are contributing to the overall aggregate S&P index going up, but it doesn't mean the actual equities inside of the S&P have hit their 52-week highs from those levels. Also, if the earnings growth projections continue to go higher, ASTS getting a little bit of a bid. Pre-market, it was down 15. Now it's down 9 at 77 right here, pre-market. If the earnings projections go up, then the forward PE continues to go down, because obviously if the price is stable and the earnings goes up, then you have the PE ratio go down, which is bullish because it means that people are willing to potentially pay $650 for the NASDAQ or $710 for the S&P with the assumption that earnings will deliver. Yeah, Microsoft was at 550. Microsoft at 420 is amazing, but because it was at 350, right? So 350 to 420 is a big move, but it's still down a lot. And I think that will, continue to keep going from here. So overall, this rally is strong. This rally has a lot of elements to it. This rally has a bunch of different people that are excited about it, including retail. By the way, Hartnett from Bank of America, who is not that bullish on this market, even he is agreeing with Goldman Sachs, which is that CTAs are going to keep buying, right? CTAs are going to keep buying. So you have $53 billion of buying in a flat market, $36 billion of buying in an up market. They see quite a bit of buying room available before we get to the positioning of highs. Earlier this year, aggregate equity positioning remains materially below the Jan-Feb highs by at least $200 billion. So, you've got the macro guys saying commodity trading advisors, which have these systemic equity flows, will likely continue to buy, just like they continue to sell in March and February. And it was ugly. But B of A, like Goldman, sees notable CTA buying in the upcoming weeks. These guys have to buy or have to sell just primarily based on their mandates. And if they're buying, then that's good. That is not bad. And again, as that earnings multiple starts to compress because the projections of earnings continues to go up and the price stays the same, your PE starts to compress, which is very, very good because that means you have something that looks reasonable. The reason NVIDIA has always looked reasonable over the past, at this point, couple of years in terms of its PE multiples because they kept accelerating the E. And because the price has been relatively flat, at least for the 7 months, I know finally we got the breakout recently, but when it was stuck between 170 and 180, you got a 15 times, 16 times forward earnings because the earnings projections kept going up, but the price kept staying the same. And that is so far, I think, what we could be seeing across the broader market, which could create some more momentum. Israeli media's second round of talks between Israel and Lebanon will take place on Thursday in Washington. Wow. In Washington? Okay, so Israel and Lebanon will be having a second round of negotiations. It seems like Friday negotiations were rather good in terms of at least coming to somewhat of an agreement on what they want to do. The second round will be happening in Washington, so that'll be happening in the United States. I'm assuming Rubio will be there to try to calm things down. Adobe right there, up 2.45. They are partnering with a bunch of companies this morning on AI agents, including Anthropic. That's why that stock is getting a bit of a move. Do we have big earnings today? We do not. Yeah, Yeah, we have nothing today. Tomorrow we have Intuitive Surgical, IBKR, United Airlines, Chubb, UNH, 3M, GE, Capital One, etc. And then Wednesday we have Tesla, ServiceNow, IBM. But today we have kind of no big earnings. Let me put the green or red poll in the chat. What are people thinking? Do we feel this market overcomes the doubt that was posed this weekend around the Iran war ending? And does that mean we have some room to run? Or do you think this thing kind of ends up giving us our first red day in a while? Green or red today? Trump responding to Reuters reports the Pakistani army chief did not advise me on anything regarding the siege of Iranian ports. Okay, so Trump basically saying Pakistan is not advising the U.S. in regards to what they did siege one of the Iranian ports yesterday, and I'm assuming the Iranians are pretty upset about that and they want to get it back. Trump didn't explain what's on that ship yet. He said there might be illegal stuff on that ship, but they have not put any details on, what stuff would be there. Amit, are you coming to Toronto for a meetup? So I think Tanner's doing one in August. So I'll probably show up to Tanner's meetup. I'm not hosting my own meetup in Toronto. We did that last year. It was awesome, but probably not this year. But I think Tanner is definitely doing it from my understanding. So if he is, I will be there. And that should be super fun. We are having the Chicago meetup back in May 9th. So I'll put the link right there. And that should be fun. But yeah, I'll probably be there for Tanner. That should be a fun time. Adobe right there, still getting a bit more of that green. USAR, they are buying another company, Rare Earth Minerals, the rare earth names. They had a run back in January and they kind of got disregarded, but now that one starting to get some more love. That's up 7.2% in the pre-market. SPY right there, down 0.23. MRVL, again, working with Google for custom TPUs, that's up. And then AMD, that is also up 0.5% as well, as that's green. Adobe's partnering with the biggest companies and not even up. They really hit the stock. Yeah, the press release also seems kind of desperate from Adobe. It's like, we're partnering with all these companies. Take a look at us. Like, again, the market's going to have a lot of, I think Adobe just needs to show the growth on earnings. The problem with some of these legacy software companies is they don't have the growth. And so they're saying they're deeply undervalued, which they are if you just assume like their free cash flow yield, but that's how you value the stock. But in this growth market, everyone's valuing it based on growth. And a lot of them just don't have the growth. So I think that's why I'm more bullish Palantir, because I know they're going to put up the growth. Like if the market cares about growth, AppLovin, Palantir, Reddit, these companies will show growth. And then if their stocks go down, it is what it is. But it's not going to be because they're not really showing that growth. Broadcom right there, 402 in the pre-market. And then you got Tesla at 400.5 as that is up in the pre-market. So you had, what's his name? Why am I forgetting his name? What's the guy's last name? Howard Marks. Yes, Howard Marks, who was on CNBC today talking about private credit. Once again, he said it's not the biggest deal in the world, so kind of downplaying some of those concerns around private credit. The banks also said the same. We'll listen to him in a bit, but here was Hassett a couple of minutes ago talking about the war and kind of if the impacts on inflation will be better for the economy.
If you're a person who has a job where you're making tips, or you're making overtime, or you're a retiree who thought that Social Security wasn't what you expected, you need to make some more money, all of you got huge tax breaks in the $4,000 to $7,000 range because of the big, beautiful bill. And so I think that with strong domestic economy, then the question is there something about the foreign relations that could upset that? And first, the U.S. economy is the engine of global growth. And so a strong U.S. economy is a super positive, despite what's going on in the Gulf. But also, once this is resolved, think about how much energy production in the Gulf area has been depressed over time because of the huge risk premium associated with Iranian misbehavior. And so once this thing is done, think about the explosion in new energy production that can happen in the Middle East, driving prices way, way down over time, including in the U.S. The final thing I can say is that if you look at the ship traffic data, it's kind of like every empty vessel on Earth is headed towards the U.S. to fill up with oil right now. So the U.S. is the biggest oil producer on Earth, and the capacity that we have to meet the demand of people who are stuck in that picture that you're showing, I think is a positive surprise for markets.
You know, Kevin, notwithstanding whether you're in support of the war or not, and think that it's worthwhile and that we can, you know, some near-term pain in terms of inflation and affordability, you know, maybe it's worth it in the long run for all the objectives that obviously that we've outlined for why we went in. Got away ability.
We just had a 0.2 at core, which rounded up to 0.2 from the ones. 2.6 is the lowest that core inflation has been since before Biden inflation started. And so we've made a huge amount of progress. And then you remember core excludes food and energy. But one of the things that was the best news of the CPI report is all the work that we've done to reduce the price of food. And so when I came in, the only thing everybody was talking about was the high price of eggs. Now egg prices are so low that farmers are actually complaining about it. Beef prices came down enormously because we opened up imports to beef. And so on, even drug prices have come down because of Trump RX. And so we've made.
So this is going to be the core argument by the administration. If they can get oil prices to go down, I mean, yeah, you do have a lot of other things that are going down in terms of food prices. I mean, you even had the DOJ that's investigating some egg producers that came out on Friday to see if, you know, they can get prices to continue going down. So you've got a lot of different angles of prices that are going down, except oil, even though oil is down, you know, a lot since the ceasefire was announced. That just needs to continue to go down to get gas prices overall, which I think we'll get the new gas price average like in a couple of days. It was $4.13 last week. I think it should be down from $4.13, maybe closer to like $3.95-ish. But we will find that out soon. Trump, we're supposed to have the talks. Trump said in a brief interview, brushing aside doubts about whether negotiations would fall apart. So I would assume at this point, nobody's playing games. Trump, I am willing to meet with senior Iranian leaders if a breakthrough is reached, as per the New York Post. Okay, so Trump likely talking to some of those New York Post reporters right now. And yeah, I think he wants a deal. I really do. I think he wants a freaking deal. I know people feel like there's never going to be a deal. I don't think we're going to be fighting for the next 50 years with Iran. I think they want a deal. It's going to be a little tough to figure out all the logistics of it, but the market also believes they want it. Tesla's going 403 right here. And as a result, I think there's a world which potentially the market brushes this off again, like it has for the past couple of weeks. Question is just be if we can keep it going. AMD 281 pre-market. That's going. We got 2 minutes until the market opens. You got the S&P almost recovered. It was down 1% last night. Now it's down 0.2. I mean, if we flip green, folks, if we flip green, then maybe, just maybe, the market is officially moving on. And the fun thing about, you know, having red last night and then flipping green potentially when the market opens is that what does it prove? Well, it proves the dip buyers are back. Like, it proves that people are ready to buy every dip, which is what we had last year. If we get that again this year, you know, who knows what the next few months can look like, especially if we do get a deal, oil prices really start to come down. I mean, there is a world, and then earnings crush. That you put all those things together, maybe we can get some more momentum. Oh, wow, it is 420 today. I just noticed it is 420. All right, April 20th. Happy 420 to everybody in whatever way you may choose to indulge on this day. Hopefully stocks can keep going high. You know what I mean? All right, 9:30, the stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. S&P, she's close to going green. She is so close. Wow, 709. We are $1.20 away from going green on the day. Let's see if that can happen. ASTS, ugly fall, 13% based on that failed satellite launch over the weekend. We'll see if people buy the dip or if that one kind of settles in around that $74 range. Robinhood, $90, that's green. Meta, $682, trying to go green. S&P, again, very close to it. Eli Lilly, they bought a company for $7 billion. That stock is flat. MRVL, they deserve it, up 5%, working with Google on custom TPUs. That's green. Wow, AMD. Oh, my goodness. Advanced Money Duplicator, 285. Let's just get 300 on that. It's been so long. People have been waiting forever. Let's see 300 Dolores on AMD. 287 it hit, 284 right here, up 2% on the day. Not too bad at all. Palantir down about 0.5%, nothing too crazy. IGV not even red. NVIDIA is red, 1.3. So NVIDIA goes down, AMD goes up. NVIDIA right there, 198.96 down from about 200. How about Tesla? We are at 402 on Tesla. What about Nebius? We are at 157, basically flat from last week. IREN's at 49. Nice to see. Almost at 50. It hit 49.99 at the open. Would be very nice to see if we could get 50. AAOI, that's down 2.4. Reddit, that's down 1%. ASML went green. Bloom Energy went green. Dell went green. A lot of these names that were red last night, they are flipping green. Robinhood just at 90. ASTS now down 11%. S&P has not flipped green yet, but it is really trying. 708.70. AMD still at 285. Zeta, that's down about 1.3%. Dell is at 52 highs, almost at 200. Dolores. BMNR is now very close to owning 5% of the entire Ethereum network. They bought more ETH overnight. Ethereum 2300, that's up about 0.95%. BTC, I think we're at 75.3, 75,000. We were at 75.3 in the morning. Where is MicroStrategy? Saylor did buy another $3 billion of Bitcoin over the weekend. I think it was like 2.8 billion was just disclosed an hour ago. So Michael Saylor once again has bought the dip. His average is 75.5. So as soon as Bitcoin gets over that, he will be in the black on his BTC. SanDisk, that's green. 934. This one was at 880 last week. Netflix, which got hit pretty bad on Friday, down 10%. That one is green, but very barely green, 0.05 at 97. Rocket Lab is greeny green, 86.90. Okay, so ASTS not taking Rocket Lab down. Sometimes the space names kind of move with each other. It's nice to see, even though ASTS is getting hit, which, it was down a lot more than this. It was down almost 17%. Now it's down 11. So at least you're getting some dip buyers coming. Rocket Lab is not being affected by that. Rocket Lab 86.30 as that continues to go up. And then Robinhood, did we break through 90? We have broke through 90, 90.5. Oscar Health. Oscar announced an AI product this morning, I think called Lucy, if I'm not wrong. Oscar right there up 2.9%. I think it's going to be another way to automate workflows. And you got this one potentially getting some AI love right there. This was $11 a couple weeks ago. Now it's at 16.27 as that one continues to move higher. Grab, that's down about 0.5%. Amcor, that's down about 1/3%. Hims trying to break through 30. Kind of one of those things about Hims. People have been waiting for that $30 range. Wow, Poet, that's up 10%. $8. There you go. This thing fell to 680 last week. Now it's at 805, making that move above 8. Let's see if they can hold it. Again, this is one of those photonics names that hasn't really moved, but people are bullish on. DoorDash 184, that's green. SanDisk 927, OpenDoor 527, Museum AI, that company down 10%. Where's Birds? Birds is still up 7%. So this thing peaked at 24. It's up from the lows of 2. So people are still sitting on a pretty big gain if you bought anywhere around 2 to 5. But if you bought anywhere above 12, you are down on this thing. But the fact that there's volume on it and people are still trading it as Newbird AI just shows how much excitement there potentially is for this name. Nike right there, 45.73. OpenDoor 524. APLD, that's down 1.75%. SoFi just went green along with Hood. So you got the fintech names continuing to go green. Apple 272. Very nice to see Apple get some love. S&P kind of needs Apple to really continue going higher. Apple is the second largest part of that index. So NVIDIA hit new all-time highs last week. Apple's still away from all-time highs, but it's at 285. But if Apple can get anywhere above that 275 level, I think the market would definitely like it. Look at Rocket Lab go, 87.27. 87.27. Tesla 405. Very nice to see Tesla get a move above 400 and actually stabilize above it. VSAT, that's up 1%. OSS, that's down 1%. And then Amazon kind of stuck at 248. Has been flatlining over the past couple of days, but at least you have made those new levels above 240. Dell, $200. Dell, $200. Is NVIDIA back above 200? NVIDIA is back above 200. AMD, 284. All right, so all your semi names are getting some love. Is Intel still running? Intel is not. It's down 1% of the day, but Intel has had a massive move last month. So I think Intel is holding on strong. They have earnings this week. We'll see what happens with them. American Express, 333. That's green. SanDisk just went red. Where is Micron? 453. That one's slightly red. That one slightly red. CoreWeave is down 3%. Again, had a big run. Can't be too upset about it. Iran is the catch-up trade with the rest of them. 48.60. That's up 1%. And then Nebius also basically flat, 156 after the run from basically 80 2 weeks ago. Salesforce, that's up 2%. That's green. Lunar's up 1%. Dell's up 1.6%. Let's look at all the other SaaS names. SaaS is pretty much all green. Yeah. Oracle continues to move 176. Atlassian, Salesforce, CrowdStrike, Net, Twilio, Palantir back to 147 almost. Snowflake, Datadog. All of these are holding up. USAR, these guys getting a green move right here, up 15. I'll pull up the exact headline on USAR, but that one is going well. Ondas secured a $10 million order this morning as well. So that's helping Ondas, but the rare earth names, I mean, look, a lot of these names that were pumping in January and then fell apart for 3 months, they're coming back like rare earth. So that entire sector is not crazy to imagine that it's up here. USAR again, 15.6%. Where's CRML, critical metals? That's up another 5% as well. That's up another 5%. Circle's down 4%. We need to get some more details on this Clarity Act and what's officially happening here, because right now we don't have those details. And if we do, that'll be better. USAR is going to be acquiring Serra Verde Group in a $3 billion deal. And it was actually down pre-market. It was down 7%. So I guess the street switched their tone on that headline. The deal gives USA Rare Earth access to Brazil's Serra Verde operation, with the company saying it's the only large-scale producer outside of Asia for all 4 magnetic rare earths. That stock now flipping 16% on the day as that's green. Is Meta dumping? Meta is a little bit of a dump, down 1.5. They are laying off employees. Apple almost 273. Wow, Poet 15%. That one's making a bigger move. Oscar, that's up 4%. Robinhood at 90. Rocket Lab 88. Could we see 90 on Rocket Lab? It's been a while. It's been a while since we've seen Rocket Lab hit 90. Dolores. Hims is getting stuck at 30. I don't know if the market makers are going to let this one really make a move. Fastly, nice to see a little bit of action right there. 5%, 25.84. That's up on the day. Nebius 156. Iren 48.50. And then Intel 67.30. The Adobe CEO will be live soon. I think this is the first Adobe CEO new interview, because the old CEO stepped down. So we'll see what he has to say and if he's a bit more convincing to Wall Street. ServiceNow, are you getting a pump? You are getting a pump. 98.85. 98.85. This thing getting above 100 again psychologically would be important. But look at that V, 81 to 98. We need the S&P to go green. We need the S&P to go green. I think if the S&P flips green, you're going to let a lot of other names flip green, and you might have people that want to keep the rally going and hold it up for the 14th day in a row, which would be very exciting to see if we get there. PayPal, 0.2%, Palantir, 146. Also, a Trump tweet signaling a deal is underway or discussions are happening. That would also definitely pump the markets here, but we got to see. Got to see if we get that. SKM, I've done some research over the weekend. This is a pretty aggressive Anthropic proxy, to be honest. If you look past the legacy business on their telecommunication side and you just care about their Anthropic stake, they have the best Anthropic stake in the market in terms of a pure exposure to the premium you're paying on the stock versus the exposure you're getting. Google, Amazon trade at a pretty high premium relative to their Anthropic stake, because obviously they're Google and Amazon. They have tons of other businesses that they hold inside of the company. And then Zoom's Zoom, you're getting like 18% exposure. SK Telecom, you're getting around 29% exposure. So Zoom has good exposure, but SKM, now the problem with SKM is it's up 80% for the year. So if you're buying this just for Anthropic, you are still paying a premium because the stock has materially re-rated since people figured out their Anthropic exposure is legit. But it does seem like that is one of the better ways to play Anthropic. And if Anthropic, goes to $1.5 trillion or something crazy like that, Zoom, SKM, I would imagine all of those are going to get a bigger move. Amazon, 247. 247 on Amazon. Palantir, 145.50. Snapchat getting hit by about 3%. That's down. Eli Lilly, that's down 0.5% after the acquisition. Verizon, that's flat. D-Wave down 4. Your quantum names getting hit today. Rigetti as well, down 2. Airtest Systems down 1. Open Door down 1.4. Walmart goes green. That's an aggressive green. All Walmart. That's up. ASTS trying to get back up to 80 at 77 right now. SPY still trying. Still down 0.2. It is still trying. AMD 281. All right, so the 287 did not last on AMD. So we got to see if that can kind of come back. But we are at least somewhat still in the green. Meta getting hit. Rocket Lab trying to hold on as that is still up 3. Xi just said the Strait of Hormuz should remain open for nominal passage, which aligns with the common interests of the countries in the region and the international community. Again, China will be meeting with the United States in about a month. May 15th, Trump will be traveling. And so we'll see if that meeting goes well. Strategy again bought 2.54 billion of Bitcoin at 74,395. Jersey Mike Subs is also filing for an IPO. I have not had their sandwiches in a while. I do think their sandwiches are, I mean, people do like it, right? Like people enjoy their sandwiches. I just kind of don't like restaurants as investments. So I'd be curious to take a look at their S1 and see kind of what their growth opportunities are and what the margins are on that type of business. Walmart right there, 129.30. 129.30. Yeah, a lot of people here like their subs. I haven't had it in a while, but you know, when I did have it probably a couple years ago, I did like it. There's a ton of them in New Jersey. But you know, it's just like, what are the margins on these sandwiches? You know, what's their cost of mayo? These are like really important things. Obviously, if I was part of the management team, I would do some cost cutting, probably just get rid of mayo from the menu. Would save us a decent chunk of money. But we're gonna have to see that X1. AXTI, that's down 9%. AAOI down about 2%. Yes, Cerebrus is also filing for an IPO. They're also filing for an IPO soon. Wow, the photonics names are down, but Poet's really moving here. So Poet, 20%. I mean, I don't know what the headline is on this thing. I'll see if I can find the headline. I don't know if there is one, but all the photonics names are flat. This one, no headline. It might just be breaking out to break out. It's been depressed for a while, so you might be seeing that happening. Birds, that's up 10%. Apple, 272.50. ServiceNow, that's up 2%. Bloom Energy down. Oh, Marvell, I forgot. Yeah, they work closely with Marvell. Yeah, of course, that's the headline. So Marvell's working with Google TPUs, and then you've got some of the smaller players in the Marvell supply chain that obviously are going to get more orders, or at least the perception is they get more orders, and that's why it's going up. Wolf, that's up 11%. There you go. 28.48. That's green. As a guy from Jersey, Mike's fell off big time. Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of competition with Jersey Mike's. I mean, just Subway in general. Now, I know that's a different type of sandwich, but I'd be very curious. The fact that they think they can go public successfully, I'm curious, what are their numbers looking like for them to feel it's better to go public than just like get fully bought out by Blackstone, which I think Blackstone owns a majority of the company already in the private equity space. So that would be a bit more interesting to find out. D-Wave still down 3.2%. Okta up 3%. American Express up 0.5%. AEHR just went green. Let's see if SPY can flip, man. If SPY can flip, it's got $1.40 of work to do to really flip. We're going to see some excitement here. But we got to actually meaningfully flip for this thing to change. We got to see. CAR continues to gain momentum. This thing, again, Avis budget. I don't understand why it's been as green as, but it has. If anyone's been trading it, let me know. But I mean, this one, it's up a lot. And I don't exactly know why. Let's get a little bit of coverage on this, but this one is 4x'd basically in the past month.
How much is that a recall?
The car rental dynamics are favorable and improved trends. Nevertheless, fundamentals have become favorable. We have to downgrade because the current stock price not justified, even with improved fundamentals. Oh, yeah. By the way, keep an eye on this during the day because sometimes it's down a little bit in the morning. We talk about
So again, the car rental market is good. It's just how good is it to get the market to be that excited about it? Carvana also hasn't made that crazy move either. 387. I know that's more used cars than rental cars, but still. Fastly up 5.2, ServiceNow up 2.5, HIMS up 2.7. Let me check HIMS resistance at 30. She's trying to break through. That'd be very, very important if we can get a 30 handle, a 3 handle on HIMS. It's about 1,000 shares. It's not a lot. It's not a lot. 1,000 shares to get above that. ASTS only down 10. Wolf up 8. Credo up 2. Disney up a little bit. And then you have Robinhood 92.19. Robinhood 92.19. Ashfree says, as the owner of multiple restaurants, stay away from Jersey Mike stock. Restaurant margins are being compressed at every aspect. If you don't sell alcohol, you don't make money. Yeah, I mean, look, even some of the best stocks that are public in the restaurant space, like a Chipotle, you know, their margins have not been in the right direction, which is why the stock has been kind of dead for the past couple of years. So if Chipotle can't make money as easily, it's tough for some of these other brands to do it. Wow, Hood, we're really making a nice move right here. 91.83 as that one's going. Poet's being squeezed, obviously. I mean, it's got to be being squeezed right now. 24.64, 901. Again, the Marvell partnership with Google as Poet as a supplier for Marvell is probably helping, but it's definitely getting a little bit of a short squeeze right there, which should be helping. AMD 281, Wolfspeed 28. Explain to me like I'm an idiot, why would the S&P turn green today? My assumption is if the market can price in that negotiations are going to be happening and a deal is likely, which is what they felt on Friday, but then they got interrupted on Saturday when Trump said we shot down an Iranian ship. If that sentiment goes away and we get back to more of the sentiment around peace and, you know, the ability of us to land a deal with Iran, yeah, I think we probably flip green. I mean, we've been green for the past week based on the assumption that we are going to get a deal, oil will go down, and that earnings will continue to get a premium. But then, you know, one thing could change it. And on Saturday, more aggression, escalation of hostility started, which is why futures opened red. But if you don't really believe it's that big of a deal, which I don't, I think both sides still want a deal, then I think the market prices that in and we go higher. It's just a question of, you know, can that happen today? And we keep this 14th green day going for this rally. Netflix going below where it was on Friday. Wow, the street really hated these earnings. The street really hated these earnings. My goodness, 95.87. This thing just cannot catch a bid. Cheesecake Factory's flat. DoorDash up a little bit. ServiceNow is pumping, so ServiceNow getting a move, which is good. BTC also getting a slight move. Oklo down 3. Why would Iran want oil prices to go down? Well, remember, like, oil prices being up doesn't just mean that everyone makes more money, because if the volume of the amount of oil in supply and or oil being consumed goes down, then it's tough. A lot of times also these companies don't have the capacity to deal with oil at these high prices because they also have to produce them and they have certain levels that they need to produce at. So if people stop taking flights, which by the way, I mean, I've been looking for a couple flights that I'm buying, and like these prices are insanity. Like it's crazy. It's making me kind of not want to buy some of these flights, or at least go to different airlines and really spend time. Usually I buy a flight from United and I pay something reasonable. And now I'm just like, okay, I have to go to American Airlines and see if they have a better price. And if all the prices are high, I mean, people might stop traveling as much as they were. Like, or you just, in general, you have consumer demand goes down, which is not good if oil is priced this high. And by the way, if Iran is, you know, has the Strait of Hormuz closed, they're not making any money. So forget the price of oil. Like they need the Strait open to actually continue making money. Tesla right there, 394. Yes, I mean tickets, not actual flights. I'm not literally buying a jet, but like, you know, basically, like even the flight I bought to LA last month, it was $600. Why am I paying $600? It should be like $300, $350 max, you know, but the price of oil going up, it's made it tough to get good prices. So the point is we can't have consumer demand fall off a cliff, or else oil prices in general are not going to be profitable for a lot of these companies. Amcor 68.41. That's green. The VIX did just spike a little bit. 29.90 on HIMS. VIX is actually up 9%. The fact that the S&P is only down 0.2 and the VIX is up 9. Well, VIX is probably up because of oil, but That's incredible that you're not really seeing that much pain on the actual index. SoFi 1950. SoFi 1950, as that is also green. Suraj, thanks for the super chat. Do you think the car squeeze continues? I mean, I don't know what's stopping it at this point. I still don't understand. Look at that, $500. I don't understand why it's squeezed as much as it's squeezed, but it has. And at this point, I would be scared to short it. Like, theoretically, you would think shorting this chart would be easy money. But if you said that at 200, 300, 400, it didn't work. So is 500 where it tops? Is this where the shorts officially come in? Or it's still only trading at 1.5 times sales. Like, I don't know everything about the valuation about this company, but it's not trading at like 80 times sales or something crazy. I mean, if somehow people can make sense of the valuation and this thing keeps going up, then it would be quite incredible. 99.62 on ServiceNow. Hims, did we touch 30? Did we get it? There it is, 30 to low res. Full double from the lows at 15. Full double from the lows at 15. The psychedelic stocks are moving after Trump's executive order. So you have DFTX, that's up 3% on the day. It was up a lot on Friday. You have ENVB. This one's up 160% today. Market cap is $8 million, so it was a $4 million company. The Trump executive order, again, reviewing the health regulating process of psychedelic drugs. And then you have CMPS, which is up 40% today. Those are your psychedelics going green. Yeah, let's look at the heat map of the market today. So we are relatively flat to red across pretty much every sector, which is okay. Industrial's red, communication services red, a lot of tech is red, except some of the software names and Apple. Apple really didn't participate last week, so it's good to see Apple kind of get more of this love right here. And then you have your financials that are green. Financials crushed it. All the banks did great. I mean, I think that's okay. I think that's okay. What do you think about TSM? TSM, they smashed earnings. I think because of how large it is via market cap, that's why it didn't get as big of a move. It's the same thing with NVIDIA, right? Like at the end of the day, for the street to give it a big, big move, like 10, 15%, you're adding hundreds of billions of market cap. And sometimes it's just not easy for them to do that. But at least it's holding the 1.9 trillion market cap that it has. And so NVIDIA's going to have to really crush it to break through that 220 level. I mean, I know theoretically they should already be trading there, but just the law of large numbers means they're going to have to put up some really good growth to get the street excited. ServiceNow, $100. There she goes. Triple digits on Mr. ServiceNow. Congrats if you bought the dip on that. 80 to 100. Nice 20% move right there. And then you have Amcor that is trying to go for 70. And again, Amcor, the whole thesis when it was trading at one-time sales was that it would double its price of sales. It's now at 2.5. That thesis has played out. And MRVL, Broadcom demand is only better for Amcor. TSM demand only better for Amcor. So this one seems to continue being on the trajectory of winning. Adobe right there, 251. Lilly down a little bit. And then Zeta flips green as well. Look at that. You got Zeta flipping green. Did you dive into the peptides vertical for Hims? No, I have not yet. It's something that I have to learn more about. I watched a little bit of an interview this weekend of someone talking about peptides just to kind of get a better understanding of why the industry is so important. But look, if that's what takes Hims to the next level, then I don't think that's too crazy. The Novo lawsuit is done. The shorts are still there, which means the squeeze is possible. The partnership that they have with Novo is better than them getting sued by them. And now if peptides gets deregulated or not as regulated heavily by the FDA, I mean, maybe there's a world where Hims steps in. Now, the growth last quarter on Hims wasn't that good, quite frankly, especially subscriber growth. So like there were some business metrics that it deserved to get hit on. If they can change that over the next couple of quarters and they have a general tailwind of peptides, maybe that's where this thing becomes a $20 billion company. Right now it's at 11 billion, 12 billion. What's the market cap? 7 billion? Yeah, even a $14 billion company doesn't sound crazy if they're doing about 4 to 5 billion in revenue. Oracle right there, 176. That's also green. Pouncer back to 147. Do you own Reddit? I do not own Reddit, but if you bought Reddit at one, I bought Meta on that dip over Reddit. Meta around 570 and then 600, so I didn't get the actual 520 bottom. Reddit was around 120 during that time. So if you bought Reddit, I don't blame you. The growth is there. Meta obviously is the safer bet, but Reddit should have more alpha because it's a smaller company. And I am very excited for their earnings because if they get to that 70-80% growth, I wonder if the street takes us back to 200. It was at 298 last year, and it stayed at 230 for a long time before it ended up getting hit. Oracle right there, 176. That's still green. And that's still holding on. Do you know when Hood Social is launching for everybody? I have no idea. I have no idea when Hood Social is launching. I mean, right now I think they've only let 1,000 people in. And so I'm not sure exactly when that officially goes live. 75,250 on BTC. Where's SPY? Oh, she's pushing. Folks, she is 30 cents away from giving us the green. 30 cents away. VIX just fell 1%. I mean, my portfolio is basically almost exactly where it was at the end of Friday. And yesterday it was down pretty bad as soon as the overnight markets open. I imagine for a lot of people, it's probably similar to where it was on Friday. If the S&P can flip green, wow, HIM's 31. You're going to see a lot of different elements of this market pop back up. Rocket Lab, did we hit 88 yet? Rocket Lab, there it is, 88.70. I will check 90 resistance. This one would be exciting. This was actually the only stock I bought, Rocket Lab, before the ceasefire was announced. I guess you could say NVIDIA as well, but NVIDIA was more in February. So this one was the main one before the ceasefire was announced. So this would be really nice to see this thing make its move. And again, the whole idea for me was SpaceX. I think this is how you play SpaceX. This and ASTS. But Rocket Lab is just a very exciting company for people to play SpaceX. $90 resistance is 33,000 shares. 33,000. Which would not be that crazy. AMD 282. Amcor just hit all-time highs. Wow. Dave says Rocket Lab just became my biggest holding, passing NVIDIA. Dude, that's incredible. Congrats. Who would have thought, right? Rocket Lab, this tiny space company, surpassing NVIDIA in your portfolio. It's amazing. This is why people pick individual stocks. There's just more alpha in these small. Now, there's also more risk, right? That's the part that we all have to deal with to get these types of days. But that is part of the reason why people take a chance on doing the research and picking individual stocks. S&P, she's trying. She's about 50 cents away. She is trying. She's trying. Do you know if Pouncer got the FAA deal? We don't. So on Friday, it was announced that the FAA is launching a bidding contract for essentially an AI tool that would change air traffic control. Pouncer did not get the contract. They're bidding with two other companies. I think Pouncer will get the contract because usually when it comes to these bids, they end up doing very well. But they are in the bidding for it. And it's essentially kind of an overhaul of air traffic control from an AI perspective. Now, Pouncer has been working with the FAA for the past 10 years, so they have a deep relationship with them. If they can effectively build this tool in the prototype and get this contract. I mean, we looked at the stuff on Friday. Bloomberg said it was about a $20 billion overhaul. I don't think Pouncer would get $20 billion, but even if they get $500 million to $1 billion, that's 1/7 of their revenue on one deal. Like those are the types of deals that really would get the street continue to be excited and just proves their moat as one of the more important software companies that's out there. Robin at 91.57. 91.57. AXP 332. ASML just went flat, and then Bloom, which had a massive run last week, that is slightly red at 207. Do we have any macro data coming out today? I don't think so. This week, we don't have a lot of crazy data. We had a ton of data last week with CPI and PPI. We have retail sales tomorrow. Canada's inflation rate came in. It was at 2.4. The expectation was 2.5. So Canada with their inflation rate not too crazy. Wednesday, we get more mortgage applications and mortgage rates. Thursday, we have jobless claims. We have PMI. And then consumer confidence. Okay, so this week's not a heavy week for data. Not a heavy week for data. It's a bigger heavy week for earnings, which is important. Ondas, 5%. This thing was stuck below 9 for the past month. Very nice to see this one breaking out. They got multiple deals over the past couple of weeks, including 10 million this morning, which is also helping them. My AMD leaps are up 600%. Congrats, man. I mean, AMD going slightly red right here, but 200 to 280 has been a very, very big move. Very big. I'm not sure why Tesla's going red. Tesla was broken up to 406, now at 396. Not sure why. But you did have a dump right there after the open. PBS reporter says Trump tells me that if the ceasefire expires tomorrow, then a lot of bombs start going off. Trump tells me that if the ceasefire expires tomorrow, then a lot of bombs start going off. Okay, let's hope the ceasefire doesn't end tomorrow. That would that would be nice. Here's the quote. PBS, what happens if the ceasefire expires? Trump, a lot of bombs go off. PBS, is Iran still participating in the talks that will be happening in Islamabad? Trump says, I don't know. I mean, they're supposed to be there. We agreed to be there, although they say we didn't. But no, it was set up, and we'll see whether or not it's there. If they're not there, that's fine too. Question, what do you want from the negotiating team in Islamabad? Trump says no nuclear weapons. Very simple. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Very simple. Then they asked him about Kushner and his ties to the Middle East and the money he's raised from the Saudis. They said, is it appropriate for him to be negotiating? Trump says, well, he was there before, a long time before, and he's purely negotiating for the fact that they're not going to have a nuclear weapon. Whether you have business or not, everyone knows that's the right thing. He's a very good negotiator. Okay, markets just got to believe it. Markets just got to believe it now. We could hopefully flip green. Rock Lab, she's trying. 89. She is trying here. OSS, nice move, 5%. They had great guidance last week on their earnings, 1044. This is one of the only real small caps I own, but the potential of edge compute and their contracting seems like it has more potential than not. SoFi, 1953. SPY again. She is trying. Snapchat down 2. That one not making the run above 60 or above 6 right here. Oh yeah, Tesla does have earnings this week. I forgot. That could also be a reason it's going to be volatile this week. I mean, the earnings are going to suck. We know the earnings are going to suck. The delivery sucked. The energy production sucked. A lot of stuff sucked. But Elon will once again have to paint this picture of Optimus and FSD. And to his credit, for the past 7 quarters, Elon has got on that earnings, showed up with horrible numbers, and basically just waxed poetic about how amazing FSD and Optimus will be. And it saves the stock every time. It has a little bit of a dip, and then Elon starts talking. He throws out some numbers, and, you know, stock goes up. So I don't think this quarter will be that different, but if they can show a little bit more progress, even if it's like, you know, very basic things of updates they can give us, I think people will be a bit more excited. Rock Lab, 8920. 90 has 30,000 shares. 90 has 30,000 shares. Robo did get 2 new cities. Yes, I personally don't think that's enough for it to really, really expand, at least at the level that you need to make sense of the multiple. But if they can expand to like 2 cities every month or every other week, you know, then you're going to start to see that progress come in. Like, I wonder how much revenue they're even making out of Robotaxi right now. I would imagine it's like maybe a couple $1 million, right? Like it's got to be something so inconsequential to them, especially because they're subsidizing all the rides. Like, it's just not there yet in terms of real growth. Look at ASTS, almost back to 80. This thing fell to 70 last night. So it's ugly, but it's not as ugly. Down 8% is probably appropriate. Down 15 was probably a bit too much. Reddit 165. SPY, she is very close, but is not flipped green yet. Rocket Lab 89.50. 89.50 on the Lab of Rockets. It's over what happened with Trump over the weekend here. Let's see if we can get some more information. The Adobe CEO is not live yet, but when he does get live, we'll take a listen to what he has to say as well.
For talks with the Iranians, what's not clear now is whether the Iranians will be there to meet them. Iranian state media said over the weekend that reports of additional talks are false. The president said the American delegation will arrive within hours. All this comes after President Trump said on Sunday afternoon that a 900-foot-long Iranian-flagged cargo ship attempted to run the U.S. Navy's blockade of the Strait of Hormuz and was intercepted by the U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer USS Spruance, which gave the Iranians a warning. The Iranian crew refused to listen, President Trump wrote on social media, so our Navy ship stopped them right in their tracks by blowing a hole in the engine room. Right now, U.S. Marines have custody of the vessel. Now, CENTCOM released this video. It says shows U.S. forces telling sailors to vacate the engine room and then firing on the ship. The U.S. said the Spruance fired rounds from its 5-inch MK-45 gun, and Marines from the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit boarded the non-compliant vessel. The president also said that the vessel had been under U.S. Treasury sanctions due to a prior history of illegal activity. That followed an earlier post in which the president said that Iran had fired on vessels from France and the United Kingdom over the weekend. Now, Iranian state media said late Sunday, under these conditions, the outlook for constructive talks remains bleak. So this has clearly been a very fluid 24 hours. President Trump told MS Now yesterday that Vice President J.D. Vance would not go due to security issues, but then a U.S. official followed up to say that, yes, in fact, Vance would go to Pakistan. And now we wait to see if these talks actually take place, guys. Back over to you.
Eamon, thank you. Eamon Javers in D.C. for us. Now let's move on to the broader market. As stocks are trading low at the lows of the morning, at least after, of course, that push to new highs that culminated in part with Friday's move. Joining us is Adam Parker, founder and CEO of Trivariate Research. Always good to have you. Adam.
OpenAI just came out, or the information is reporting that OpenAI has a new image model that is going to be apparently better than Google's. This is a preview of it. I believe this is what they got from OpenAI. So there's a police officer, and then there's the AI version of the police officer. OpenAI takes aim at Google with new image model. You know, Nano Banana has definitely been a pretty incredible image model. I agree that the current image model they have is horrible. Like, I've tried going on ChatGPT and say, hey, can you make an adjustment here? Can you do this? And like, it gives me some nonsense. And I'm like, okay, this is just bad. So them fixing the image part, because I'm sure there's tons of people that would love to edit images just by talking to ChatGPT. You know, that would definitely be exciting for people to see. At Rocket Lab, we touched 90, folks. There it goes. Touched 90 Dolores. Very nice to see. This is the first time we've seen 90 since January 17th. Wow. It's been a minute. It's been a freaking minute. But there we are. We are green. Oh, left is old, right is new. Oh, you're right. Oh, so, I mean, yeah, that makes freaking this look way more realistic. I mean, the right looks not realistic at all. But remember, like, I think a couple of months ago, Nano Banana went viral because of their version of the image model that made a lot of people think there was like this girl at a bar in the picture, and everyone thought like it was a real girl at a bar, and it was like, no, it's AI. It's like, that's when I was like, oh my goodness, this is like really taking off right here. Rocket Lab right there, 90.33. Again, SpaceX momentum, space in general, that's helping right there. Robin at 91.35, ASTS still 78. And then Walmart, 128.30. CNN, VP Vance has not left for Pakistan yet. There was some like confusion over the weekend because Trump said Vance was not going to go. And then a U.S. official said Vance is going to go. So we don't fully know yet if Vance will be part of the negotiations. I think he will be, but the street's still a bit confused on if that's happening. Ondas up 5, S&P still trying, Reddit 165, Dell, incredible move right here, 201.84. I mean, Dell year to date, 58%. When was the last time Dell was up 58% in a year? Like, it's a hardware business with crappy margins. It usually doesn't make that big of a run. But I think the issue with SMCI and some of the other server companies has really led to a lot of that capital flowing into Dell over the others. HIM's right there, 31.50. 31.50. I know a lot of people here, they had diamond hands. They believed in HIMs. They held through the drawdown to 15. If you have, you deserve this. You deserve to be rewarded for that. It's not easy to hold on to basically what was a 75% drawdown. And you're seeing some light on the other side right here. Marvell 146, Walmart 128, ServiceNow 99.46. Mitt's bags are packed to take Vance's place. I'm just saying, I think I could get us a deal. I really think I could get us a deal. Someone just bought 8.4 million of call options on Meta. June 18th, 2026. The strike is 690. So you got a nice OTM call option flow of almost 10 million coming through for Meta. We all laughed at that Reddit guy who YOLO'd his grandma's inheritance into Intel. I wonder if that guy needs to make a follow-up post on Intel. There was this guy on Reddit who took his grandmother's $885,000 inheritance and dumped it into Intel at like 35, and then it fell to 18. I mean, if he just held on, then he's the last one laughing now. So we need to see an update on that. He ended up selling. I think he probably panic sold. Yeah, it's hard for people to hold on, dude. I mean, with HIMs, I know a lot of people just really believe in that thesis, and that's why they've held, but it's tough. 31.44. I mean, if HIMs gets closer to 40, that's basically where it was when it really began its rally to 70. So 40 would be kind of a normal price for this thing to hold on to. CPU shortage news is still coming soon. I think that's part of the reason AMD and Intel have taken a bid as well. And Jose was talking about that last week. The CPU shortage that we are now starting to see, Jensen talked about it at GTC, is becoming a bit more aggressive. Maybe not as aggressive as the memory shortage, but still, it's something that the semiconductor companies can't not pay attention to. And I think that could also be creating the bid on both those companies, AMD and Intel. Zeta's at 18.15. PayPal, but even PayPal continuing its move, as that one is now at 15 here. Do you pay for a Bloomberg terminal? No, I pay for a Cactus Jack terminal, which quite frankly is better, in my opinion, than a Bloomberg terminal. Novo, I'm holding that at 63. Novo's had a tough year. It was having a good year in January, but it was not able to get through. 40.39, 0.32%. Celsius, that's also down 5%. That's the other thing about buying individual stocks. You really have to have the stomach for just like holding it, seeing it go down, and like literally just not caring about what people think. Because you buy a stock and then it goes down, and everyone wants to laugh when it goes down. Like people just love the idea of seeing someone lose money. And you just, you have to have a certain mentality of just like, okay, you can laugh right now, but you're wrong. And then it's a question of if you're right or if you're wrong. But if you end up being right, like the person who's laughing when the stock went down is, they always end up looking bad. And that happens more often than not in the market. I mean, all the bears, throughout the month of March, just saying that the world is ending. It's like, A, it wasn't. And then B, you look stupid now that we had a 2-week rally and you didn't do anything about it. Like, it's like, this is when you make money. The idea that we reverse back to the March 30th lows, I just find that hard to believe. Can we pull back? Of course. Do we reverse back to those levels? Not based on the structural shift we've seen, especially on the institutional side. And, that ultimately comes down to conviction. Delta right there, 71.90. that one continuing to go green as well. Never understood folks rooting against play so hard. It's not a zero positive sum game. Yeah, I agree. We can all win. Just because one stock goes down, the other stock goes up doesn't mean someone has to lose. This is a game where if there's more liquidity, if there's more money, everyone can win together. Palantir right there, just under 146. Roku, is that trying to make a move today? Roku 116. How much is this up year to date? I think Kathy still owns a decent chunk of this. Year to date, Roku is up 7%. How about ARK year to date? ARK year to date is now up only 1%. Wow. So ARK has a lot of room to run if we end up coming back to risk on. Let's check the stock draft. Matt should be doing very well today. Well, actually, I forgot. Matt has ASTS, so that one's probably bouncing his Rocket Lab, but he is still in the lead. Matt's at 35. I'm at 32.5. Steve's at 12. Tanner's at 10.4. Chris is at 9.1. So Matt's still at 35. I'm at 32. And the space names are going to determine by the end of June kind of who ends up coming up on top on the stock draft. CNN, JD Vance is currently expected to depart Washington on Tuesday to travel to Pakistan to take part in the latest round of talks. People familiar with the matter tells me. A second round of talks between U.S. and Iranian delegations are currently planned for Wednesday, as per CNN. Okay. Let's see if we can get this deal done. Got to get it over with now. No more back and forth. This thing's got to get done, hopefully this week. And we never have to speak about Iranian geopolitics again. Nothing would make me happier than not having to analyze the Pakistani intermediation of the IRGC. Like, it would make me so happy to not have to talk about that anymore. Well, that would be nice. How does ARK continue to lose money for investors, but they make money? Well, that's the crazy thing about the business of managing money, right? You don't have to deliver a return because you get a management fee. So technically, whether whether you go up or down in performance, you take that fee off the AUM. And for some reason, Kathy has just been able to hold her AUM. I mean, I think ARK still has at the top, it had in 2021 30 billion AUM. Right now, ARK has 7 billion. Still a lot of money, 7 billion. And the crazy thing is, the tweet went viral again over the weekend. She sold all of her NVIDIA at $15. And, I read the note she put out in 2021 or 2022 October when she sold it. She said, it's Cisco. Like, it's kind of crazy to see that. Now, again, they've had some big winners, and they had NVIDIA back in 2014. So they made money on NVIDIA, but they just missed a crazy run on NVIDIA, which obviously would have helped the fund long term. But they got a bunch of other names that, held up. Trump, did he just post? Okay, here we go. Trump tweet, quote, Israel never talked me into the war with Iran. The results of October 7th added to my lifelong opinion that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. I watch and read the fake news pundits and polls in total disbelief. 90% of what they say are lies and made up stories, and the polls are rigged, much as the 2020 presidential election was rigged. Just like the results in Venezuela, which the media doesn't like talking about, the results in Iran will be amazing. And if Iran's new leaders, because of the regime change, are smart, Iran can have a great and prosperous future. Okay, so I think Trump right here trying to combat the narrative in regards to Israel potentially leading the U.S. into this war. S&P still kind of flat. And I guess he's trying to say, I went into the war because, I wanted to. Bitcoin likes it, 75.5. I don't know. People will have their own opinion on this. But the reason this tweet is technically bullish is because, once again, he is moving past the war and now moving to the communication, the politicization, and the framing of the war. And the reason that's bullish is because it assumes inherently that he thinks the war is done and a deal will happen. Just like when he had the whole DoorDash stunt last week. The reason he's focusing on that is because he's moving past the actual war itself. Like if you're in the midst of the war and you're making decisions in the Situation Room, you're probably not tweeting about all this random stuff, which he didn't for them. I mean, we barely got any updates about the economy in March and February. It was all Iran. So to me, if he's worried about framing the narrative, no matter what people believe about how he frames the narrative, the point is he's focused on the aftermath, which he should be because we have midterms coming up. But that hopefully means we have a deal. Uber, is that green today? Uber, that's flat, 76.45. Not doing much. Intel, 66.30, that's down 3. Meta, that is down 1.7. This Adobe CEO, I'm curious to listen to him as well. I don't see him on yet. I would want to see kind of how he argues against the way the street is priced in. Soft. He's not live yet. Oh, he's about to be live. Okay, he's about to be live. Let's hear from Adam Parker, and then we'll see from what the Adobe CEO says.
Double-digit growth, and only 5 times the first year the stock market was bad. So and that was Great Depression, World War II. There were some pretty bad things. So maybe we're about to head into something we don't see in 28 that's going to be awful, or maybe earnings are just going to be strong enough to handle some multiple contraction and some misses eventually. And what prevented me from getting a little more optimistic earlier was just that penalty for missing has been harsh. If you look at stocks that miss, they're going down way more than the companies that beat are going up. And so that asymmetry never feels great. But I just ultimately think the earnings power is probably too high to get too negative.
Did the turnaround in software last week? Because you were when IGV just started to begin to struggle, you were warning us.
I don't really like software still. I'm still semis over software. We wrote a note a couple years ago called "That's Our North Star," and that's still the case for me. I just think the obsolescence risk is higher in software. I think software is really structurally in trouble. There'll be some winners, but I think their multiples contract. It's more just the earnings power of semis and the associated complex. I mean, my whole thing is, I don't think AI is in a bubble. I think if people think that, they don't really know what it is. So I think you got to pay more attention. There'll probably be a data center overbuild in 4 or 5 years, and the stock could be bad a couple years before that. But there's just too much earnings power to get too negative, and that was probably the main point of the message. And I think history's on your side a little bit.
Why do you think earnings power is so strong right now? Do you think AI is playing a big role in that?
For sure. I mean, if you just look at Micron and NVIDIA alone, I think their year-over-year earnings is something like $15 billion more net income in Q1 this year than last year. So there's a lot on there. I just think that you're about to see, we track this with the natural language processing every earnings call transcript, and you're about to see more AI productivity for the companies. You're about to see them get more efficient using their employees. So I do think you're going to have above trend earnings for the S&P for the next couple of years. And, getting negative seems a little bit premature to me.
Well, to your point, we haven't really seen the efficiencies brought to bear yet by AI.
Only 16% of the S&P 500 are mentioning it right now. And just because they're mentioning it doesn't mean it's hitting the numbers. So there are some stocks for sure that are embedding it. I mean, Walmart's not trading at the price of forward earnings it's trading at because people don't think their margins are going up. There definitely are some companies, but there are others that aren't. One area that we've been recommending that's been wrong, I was going to say contrarian, but wrong and contrarian are synonyms, is healthcare, right? Where I just feel like the whole point of all of this, I think, is that we all live longer, we're more productive, we're all alive. There's so many businesses in there where demand's going to be steady. I have lots of employees that I should be able to predict my employee and customer behavior and drive a cost. So
healthcare as a sector has been dead, but I think a lot of that is not because the AI innovation premium hasn't been priced in. I think it's been more about the CMS rates and the lack of excitement about Elevance and UNH, et cetera. So, I mean, maybe there's an AI premium. Tempest, companies like that have been able to benefit from it. The pharmaceuticals, some of them have been able to benefit. Biotechs are up on the year. XBI has been in a bear market for the past 5 years. That's broken out. But overall, AI in the healthcare sector, has not been seen as like this massive winner. Micron is down 1%. NVIDIA is down 1%. So Micron getting hit a little bit. CoreWeave still down 2%. Oscar's made a big move from the lows. The healthcare ACA subsidies, I think, is still the question with Oscar. And if this one can fully take off. Air test systems, another 7% move today. 90 resistance is about 3,000 shares. You don't have a lot of resistance on that one to get above 90, but it is moving. Nebius consolidating here is bullish. I agree. I think if you're a super large long-term Nebius shareholder, the best thing you could ask for is this thing to be flat for the next month at 150 and not do anything. Because then it's normalizing the 150s, which you can't be upset about if you bought it substantially lower than that. But if this thing were to run up to 200, it would just be like, it would probably be too much too fast. So I think this 150, 160 range is very good for this. Same thing with Corey around that 120 range. Roku just flipped green. SPY is not giving us green yet. It's not. It's trying to, but it's not. ServiceNow 99.16. That one keeps going. Ondas also keeps surging on 1063 up from 850. And Bitcoin's actually moved. Bitcoin's moving way more relative to the S&P or gold or silver. The 10-year, by the way, is at 4.2, which is nice. It was almost 4.4 2 weeks ago, so at least that's come down. Yeah, you're seeing risk on and small caps. Whereas IWM is up. It's the only index that's up against SPY and Qs, which I would say is good for just like breadth over depth in this market, right? Like the small caps, risk on assets, a lot of smaller names like an Ondas, an Oscar, they are green even if the Mag 7 are down today. It's not the worst thing. Marvell, that's up 4. Carvana, that's up 1 now. USAR, up 14. HIMS, almost 10%. There you go, 31.40 on HIMS. Do you buy Amcor here? I think Amcor now is a little hard to buy at these levels. It gave a lot of time to buy it below 50. I personally would not be a buyer here. If anything, I think if you're holding onto a massive long position, this is where you sell aggressive covered calls or you trim some of your position. But this is not where you enter net new long on Amcor. Now, could it keep going up? Yeah. But the thesis was to double its price to sales, and it has done that. So at this point, if the thesis is to quadruple its price to sales, well, now it's a whole different thesis. Because again, they don't have the best margins, right? We have to be realistic about the actual company financials. So I personally would not go long here, but it would not surprise me if it goes higher. Zeta 18, IGV, that flips green. PayPal, that's all green. What do you think about Navitas? I do not know much about these. I know they got a bid from NVIDIA back in January. They were at 17 back in November. It's a much more speculative, smaller cap company. I would have to do some more research on this. Jose likes it. He doesn't love it. That one's up 5% on the day, but this one ran really heavy with the high beta names a while ago. So it would not surprise me if it once again runs with high beta again. What do you think about Lunar? I don't know anything about Lunar, to be honest. I've traded Lunar a bunch of times when it was around the 18, 19 range, made some money on it. I have not actually invested or held long, not held longer than like a couple hours on Lunar. So I really don't know much about them. I do know that they are one of the more exciting names, and they've been one of the more exciting names in the space race for the past 2.5 years, right? So when it comes to developing infrastructure for NASA, for different customers, developing payloads, I think the Nova C lunar lander was their core payload initiative. They've made a lot of progress on that. The multiple on the stock, I think, is primarily a reflection of just space-based momentum. SpaceX coming up IPO, that's up 4% of the day. But I don't know enough about it like Rocket Lab or ASTS. It's up 59% this year, Lunar. But a lot of the space names, Planet Labs, EchoStar, they're all making a pretty freaking big move. I need Lunar to chill. My covered call is blown up. Yeah, I mean, Rocket Lab as well kind of went through a lot of these $80, $85 covered calls that were sitting there. Adobe, 249. Microsoft red on the day, 419. As that one also goes red. What do you think about Nokia? Jensen invested, which is why they're getting the pump and why they've, gone up from 6. Telecommunications as an industry in regards to 6G, it's obviously going to be very important for the AI infrastructure Jensen's working on. But like realistically, if I bought Nokia, it would be because of NVIDIA. It's not because I believe in Nokia, I think very few people are buying Nokia because they think it's actually like Synopsys. I can understand buying without buying because Jensen bought, but it's Synopsys. There's I think a much broader thesis there than Nokia. So, but NVIDIA's been right on every investment they made so far. Literally every single one they made, they haven't lost money on. AMD 276. AMD 276. What's the strategy with grab leaps? Just hold them. We got to wait till at least Q1. We got to see if they can really deliver for us. And not just grab every company. Can they really deliver going into Q1? I still am a bit skeptical on buying leaps here. Now, if you bought leaps 2 weeks ago, you've done really well. But the institutional call volume option heating up means that people are expecting this rally to last for another year and a half aggressively and expect 2026 ultimately to be a 20% year, which is why buying calls would make sense right now. I'm still a little, I don't know. Like if we have a 20% rally on the S&P this year, Snapchat's probably, $8, $9 instead of $6. Buying leaps on that would make sense. You would get more leverage, but A, do you trust a company like Snapchat? B, can earnings deliver enough momentum for the market to take everything up? And that's, a deeper question right there. Venture Global, that one still down on the day, 1148. Adobe CEO, I think, is about to be live. We'll hear from him in a second. We'll see what he says. By the way, that IPO Fermi, you guys remember that? That thing has been decimated, down 20% today. You have a report of fraud with C-level executives. Fermi named a new chairman as the CEO stepped down. And then their Texas data center is just not going in the right direction. So this was like a very data center specific stock that IPO'd last year at like $30. It's now at $5. This one's just not made a big move. Tom Lee's 15-20% call for a drawdown bugs me. It bugs me as well, but I'm still like very confused on where he gets a 20% drawdown from 7,300. If the war is over with and earnings are decent, like what is the there has to be a catalyst for 20%. You don't get 20% for no reason. You get 5% for no reason, maybe 7% for no, 10% there's usually a reason, and 15% there's definitely 20% there's like something happened. NVIDIA would be closer to 130 if that were to be the case. So I don't really see that happening because I can't explain why. And I don't know what his logic is either. I don't think you can just say midterms. Like a midterm year is always bad. We just went through 2 months of hell in a midterm year. So one could argue that the pain that was supposed to happen for the midterm year just happened. Now, granted, historically, midterm years, the year ends red. So I'm not saying we can't end red. But I mean, usually you don't have some war breakout in the midterm year and then oil spikes to 95% and then you have, depressed retail activity and then that comes back with a surge. Like there's so many like anomalies that happened this year that maybe fights back against the historical trend. Well, intact because we had a drawdown. The question is, does that drawdown continue to stay? All right, Adobe CEO, he's live. Let's see what he has to say here.
Thank you, Shantanu. Thanks for having us here at Adobe Summit.
Thanks for being here, John.
So I got to start on that CEO transition. I've known you a long time. It's been about 20 years. You in the role. This is a time Adobe stock has been down, just like a lot of software, over these AI concerns. Tell me your thinking behind now being the time for this transition.
Well, as you say, John, we've known each other a long time too. It feels like 18 years ago when we talked about what Adobe was going to do for the future of creativity. And when I take a step back, first and foremost, the impact that we have had, whether it's on customers, whether it's on employees, on the era of creativity and, returning to shareholders, I think the company has done just an absolutely amazing job. To me, with AI and the disruption that's going to happen, it was really important that we got our strategy placed. And when we think about our audience-based strategy, what we are doing around business professionals and consumers, how we're targeting creators and creative professionals, as well as the creative pro and the marketing professional community, I feel really good about the strategy that's in place. If you think about the innovation, we're going to show just an amazing amount of innovation, all the way from models and what we are doing with Firefly, all the way up to what we are doing around the CX enterprise. And so serving that entire constituency. And so I feel good about the strategy. I feel really good about the innovation that we're delivering. The momentum in the business continues. And while you point out that the stock, as it relates to all of software, there are questions around it, I'm actually more confident about the company's future. And I'd like to go back to my first love, which is building products and focusing on customers.
Put this in the context for me of a couple of the major challenges as you came in as CEO. Back then, software was still being sold on shelves and on DVDs. You led one of the first transitions, successful transitions to software as a service. And you also, Adobe wasn't an enterprise software company before you started those acquisitions that expanded into experience, expanded into marketing. Is this AI transition more challenging? Is it differently challenging? Has it been something different than you expected?
Well, let's talk first about what's common. And what's common is this amazing amount of technology that's actually going to revolutionize how creativity happens, how marketing happens, how customer experience orchestration happens. And if you think about the fundamental secular trends, there's more content that's being created than ever before. Enterprises need to engage with every one of their consumers digitally. So I think what's common is the opportunity that exists to continue to bring technology to bear in these domains of creativity, marketing, is actually as large as it's been before. What's also common is the fact that when you think about the innovation that's being delivered, the pace of innovation is actually accelerating, and it's building on all the previous generations. So, as you point out, we were thinking about graphics and computing in the PC era, and we transitioned that to the mobile era, and then the cloud era, and SaaS, and now AI. I think what's different a little bit is that people are really thinking about, what happens to the future of software. And I think actually I think the bears have it all wrong. I actually believe that there's going to be more opportunity for creative companies than ever before. But we have to navigate that. We have to navigate these new surfaces like LLMs and make sure that you can perform your creative functions there. We have to make sure that we can deliver conversational interfaces. So all the modalities by which people want to engage with computing is possible. But let me just give you some trends. When we talk about SaaS and the impact, we're serving 70 billion profiles as it relates to what we're doing on customer experience for our customers. We're performing 35 trillion transactions a day. When we think about the end user adoption, we have about 850 million monthly average users as a combination of Acrobat and what we are doing with Express and Creative Cloud and Firefly. That doesn't strike me as, ways in which we are saying that we're on the back foot. In fact, we are going to be aggressive about delivering.
How should I think about your sustainable advantage at this time? I mean, Canva's certainly trying to come for you. Last week, we had Claude for Design come out that really gets people to a different starting point other than a blank page, right? And you're importing probably that into some piece of software, whether it's Canva or InDesign or Photoshop, and working with it. What is Adobe's particular advantage in that environment, and where does the margin get maintained?
Well, there are two things. As you pointed out, we serve both end users all the way through to enterprises. What do end users want? End users want a brand new, innovative way in which they can have these conversational interfaces, they can have agents do automation on their behalf, and they want all of this technology to be available across every one of those surfaces. We've announced for all of the surfaces that you mentioned, whether it's Access within OpenAI, whether it's in Copilot, whether it's in Claude, we have our technology being available there. So the fact that we have the distribution that we have, and we have the ability to get our interfaces across all of these is a huge advantage. Talk about models. Which other creative company has designed models like Firefly which are designed to be commercially safe. So we respect the intellectual property, and we're embedding that in each one of our applications. We're aggregating.
Honestly, the ability to respect the IP, that might actually matter a lot more than we think, given how many lawsuits around someone's likeliness gets involved in regards to AI. I don't know if Firefly will have mainstream adoption like GPT or Nano Banana, but there is an argument that protecting the IP and having the right guardrails is very important.
All of the AI models. So, in the technology business for end users, you have to keep innovating. But I'm really proud, and that's actually evident with the adoption of these new technologies by our customers. When we look at generative credits, how are people using AI within applications like Photoshop or Illustrator or Premiere? They're actually using more of these AI features to accomplish what's in their mind's eye.
I'm using a few myself, so I do want to talk to you about that after. But since you're mentioning Firefly in particular, part of your announcement here is a new partnership with NVIDIA, where Firefly, your AI model, is going to be on top of their stack. How is this different from or a continuation of what you sort of stated for years as Firefly's advantage of being built on top of that indemnified IP where people know it's safe because it's coming from what Adobe's already built? Is that still baked in on top of NVIDIA's stack, or is this pulling something different out of NVIDIA's technology?
Well, first, we absolutely support all of the major platforms that exist. And so, we're leveraging, as we said, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform, what's happening with AWS. But the NVIDIA relationship is special. And it's great that Jensen will be at our conference today talking about what we are doing. We shared this vision that building a frontier model for imaging and video can best be done as it relates to taking all of the Adobe IP and making sure that we leverage NVIDIA's incredible innovation as it relates to their compute, both on the training side as well as on the inference side. So developing this frontier model together and really looking at it in, as you point out, an intellectually safe way, that's something unique that we're doing. When you think about what NVIDIA brings, whether it's their CUDA technology, whether it's the new graphics chips, the second thing that we're really working on is the Omniverse. And, I think we share this vision that every physical object is also going to be represented digitally. And if we can enable all of this, as you think about what's happening in the physical world with AI, and represent that digitally for creators to create with. So those are just two of the unique things that only Adobe and NVIDIA can bring to bear.
Well, I look forward to talking more with you and Jensen about that later today. Shantanu, once again, thank you.
All right, that's what we got from the Adobe CEO. Is anyone convinced? Is anyone buying Adobe here after that? I think that's the hard part as well, man. It's like the excitement to invest. He's not really instilling. I mean, he had some decent answers. I don't think his answers were bad. I just don't think it inspires me to take a shot on Adobe down 50%. And I feel like at this point, you kind of need the CEO to compel people to be inspired to buy it. And you're just not seeing it yet. Hood right there, 89.50. That is also down. ASTS, could we crack 80? Could we crack back above 80? 79.19, still down 7%. I use Adobe every day, but it's hard to buy the stock. Yeah, this is the one that's going against the Peter Lynch model of buy what you use or buy what you know. The stock just has not necessarily translated, even though they have a lot of usage. Dell 203. Do I own it? I do not. Salesforce, ServiceNow, and Adobe are tough to own. If I had to pick one, I think it's a no-brainer if you had to pick one between Salesforce, Adobe, and ServiceNow. Dell, by the way, massive move, another 3%. It was at 160 3 weeks ago. It would be ServiceNow, because ServiceNow is still growing top line at 20%. Adobe is not. Salesforce is definitely not. And Bill McDermott is buying shares with his own money. Mark Benioff hasn't bought shares with his own money. Neither has that Adobe guy. So I don't know. I think ServiceNow is the easier one to take a chance on. And there actually is still growth there versus the other ones where there's growth, but it's more manufactured growth and it's not really top line growth. I use 4 Adobe products every day. They're still by far the best, and the freemium competition is not going to win anytime soon, if ever. Look, that's a fair point. I just, when I think of photo editing and video editing, I think of like, what would a dummy be like myself? And I've tried Adobe and I've used it here and there, but I'm like, dude, this is like complicated. And then I use Canva and I'm like, this is easy. And so I think the mass marketer is not the person who knows every little nuance around Photoshop or Premiere. Like in a world of AI, it should be like natural language prompts and then boom, your video, your photo is edited. Just like coding is tough, it shouldn't be hard to edit content anymore. You shouldn't need to have like a certification. You should be able to just talk to your software and get the job done. And I feel like Canva or an OpenAI or a Nano Banana is where that market's really going to expand. Maybe more than Firefly. They're way different crowds. Yes, but the problem is the crowd that Adobe is serving is not growing. That's the issue. Like how many freaking movie photography experts are there in the world? Like there's a lot, but Adobe's been around for a long time. I think it's captured a decent chunk of that market. Now you need to expand. And the beautiful thing about AI is if you can open the TAM up to the average person who knows nothing about photo editing, but get them to use your software and then maybe charge some type of a fee to be able to monetize that, that's exciting as growth opportunity. But I don't see Adobe as like the place to do that. I see all these different little startups or a Canva that goes after that. I mean, Canva has 240 million monthly active users. I could not believe that when I found that out. Like the average person is not using Adobe. They're using Canva. By the way, Polymarket's raising another 400 million. They're going to be a $15 billion valuation. So you've got Polymarket getting ready to raise a lot more money. Iranian Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs said, "We will continue our resistance with utmost determination and on this path. Iran's decision not to attend the negotiation has not changed. The issue of the maritime blockade is a very fundamental obstacle in the negotiations, and this matter has been announced to the Pakistani intermediary. Iran believes that as long as the U.S. does not look at the issue realistically and continues to hold the same misguided calculations, its approach to the negotiating table will be a waste of time. Iran also takes into account the scenario of the possibility that the media shows about negotiations are deceptive, and it is prepared for military confrontation and the renewed punishment of America." Okay, so once again, confusion on if we're getting this damn deal or not. I still think we're going to get it, dude. Maybe Trump's going to have to give up the blockade, which would be a sign of good faith for him to show that he's serious about negotiating. Maybe that's the thing that has to finally happen. And I feel like if he did on Friday, we might have already had a deal, but I don't know. Hopefully we get there. Hopefully we get there. 708.30 on the S&P. 708.30 as it continues to just be below that 710 level, which is what we need to go green. Take a look at this chart right here. U.S. equity positioning jumped 0.5% last week, the largest increase in 8 years. This metric covers institutional investors like fund managers, head managers, and algorithm-based trading strategies. Since 2010, there have only been 3 times you've had a 0.5% increase across all equities in positioning: 2014, 2015, and 2016. As a result, consolidated equity positioning is up 0.2%, the highest since January when it was negative 0.5, aka Wall Street's chasing the rally, which is good because Wall Street has a lot more money to chase the rally. By the way, retail investors are also doing very well. So this is from Bloomberg. Retail stock picks are on track for the best month since 2020 relative to shares favored by mutual funds. I don't know what exactly is in the retail bucket of stocks. I would imagine it's your Teslas, your Palantirs, your Nvidias, etc. Your most active retail names. But however Bloomberg calculates the most active retail names, it's been 6 years since we've had a stretch like we've had in regards to those retail names. Now, could that mean there's a little bit of euphoria coming back? 100%. Can't deny that, especially when Allbirds goes up 6x in a day. But if these companies can put up the earnings, that's what matters. That is the number one thing that matters. Benioff says agent force momentum, Anthropic tie-up, and a new forthcoming AI platform will power Salesforce's rise. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal. Okay, Street's got to believe. Street's got to believe in agent force. Amit, do you use Flamora for video editing, Canva for photo editing? Yes. Flamora, dude, I bought this. Flamora is it's an underknown. I mean, it's not as well known as a piece of software, but I bought it in 2018 for $30, and I got lifetime access to it, and I've used it since then. It's a very simple photo editing or video editing software, and then Canva is basically free for editing photos. Okay, we're seeing some red candles right here because Trump just said something. Trump says highly unlikely that he extends the ceasefire with Iran. Trump says ceasefire expires Wednesday evening Washington time. Well, any chance of flipping green today might have been hit by that statement right there. Did he tweet that? He didn't tweet that. He told it to some reporter. Trump says highly unlikely he extends the ceasefire. Says ceasefire expires Wednesday evening, Washington time. Okay, let's see how low we go. Or can we hold on? S&P right there. Lows of the day. We're still above 700. Trump says he will not open the Strait of Hormuz until deal signed. Well, it's not really up to him to open the Strait of Hormuz. It's not. Trump says I will not open the Strait of Hormuz until the deal is signed. I think he means he won't get rid of the blockade until it's signed. Trump says Vance will leave for Pakistan later on Monday. Okay, he's definitely doing an interview right now. Let's see if we can catch him live. Where is he at? Where is Donnie T? He might be on Air Force One coming back.
S&P briefly extending its drop, but here's what we got. Trump says that it is highly unlikely that he extends the ceasefire with Iran, saying that the ceasefire will be expiring Wednesday evening, Washington time. We thought it might be Tuesday, but it will be Wednesday evening. Vance will leave for Pakistan later on Monday, later today, and also saying that the Strait of Hormuz will not be open until a deal is signed. You'd maybe expect stocks to be off more because of that, but Matt, we're off about 0.4, and NYMEX and Brent crude still up by 5.5%.
Nothing matters. Don't forget that.
Right. Hard to forget it.
Kevin Warsh heads to.
I mean, look, how bad is that going to really treat the market? I wonder if dip buyers come in at this point. Over the past 2 weeks, people have just bought every little move down. 707 S&P. Let's see how low that gets, but I wonder if buyers come in. Robin at 89.14, SoFi 19.25, both of those going red. Yeah, I mean, so a lot of names going red, but not like chaotic red. Broadcom below 400, Amazon below 247, Oracle below 175. Why is Poet pumping so hard today? So Marvell is rumored to be working on the Google TPUs. Poet is a supplier for Marvell, and that's why I think the stock is up 19. I mean, most likely. I mean, I think that's the only reason you could really point to, because there's no other headline. But Marvell is definitely getting a bid because of that Google TPU potential contract. It's not officially confirmed, but that's what's been reported. Rocket Lab falling from 90 back to 87.78. Dude, there were so many funny jokes over the weekend. It was like the Strait of Hormuz is open from 9:30 to 4 p.m. Monday through Fridays, and then closed for the weekend, which literally is what happens. Literally, it's like the Strait is open when the market's open. When the market closes, the Strait is closed. If we give up the blockade, then Iran just proved that they can stand up against the mighty U.S. Look, that's fair, and that's why I think Trump is not giving up the blockade. But also, if I'm the Iranians, I mean, it's pretty logical for me to be like, hold on, if you don't get rid of the blockade, we're not going to open up the Strait. Like, it's not ridiculous for the Iranians to be like, look, we'll open the Strait, but you get rid of the blockade. And I get that Trump doesn't want to do that. But I also understand that, the Iranians' perspective on negotiating means both sides have to give up something. Tesla 390. Tesla from 405 to 390. Getting hit. Rachel Summers says it's her birthday. Happy birthday to you, Rachel. Thank you for being here and spending your morning with us on the Market Open. Hopefully you have a good day. You're getting a little bit of a red day on the index, but hopefully some of your individual stocks you own are giving you a nice little green birthday gift. But thank you for being here, Rachel. Appreciate you being part of the channel. Meta almost down 3% as well. Meta 669, even after that layoff news, dude. Even after that layoff news. Yeah, Bloomberg's now reporting it. Trump says Iran truce extension unlikely, Hormuz to stay blocked. Look, this is his midterms to win or lose. This is his economy to throw down the drain or to take to new highs. So at this point, Trump's got to figure out what he wants to do here. But I'm sure he's very happy. The stock market's done well. I don't think he wants it to all go away. But I hope not. Lukey also says it's my birthday. Happy birthday to you as well. All right, we got some April birthdays here. 420 birthdays. Not bad. Summer birthday, I think July is the biggest month for summer birthdays. Like June's a big month, but July is like the biggest month when it comes to birthdays in the summer. Dude, can you guys believe we're about to be in the summer? We're about to be in the summer. Like, that is crazy. Before you know it, we'll be in 2027. Like, this year has just been so freaking fast. It's kind of crazy. Like, it's really crazy how quick it's moving. And I just hope this, the market can kind of sustain this fourth year of a bull market. Because if it does, this is going to be a historic 4-year run for the bulls. I mean, I don't even want to think if we can get the 5th year. But if we can actually even go 10% green this year, goodness, how crazy would it be? 4 years in a row of staying green. Yeah, a bunch of guys have some of these July birthdays. Year 4 of the bull market, by the way, I know it's a midterm year, but here's some macro data. It tends to be strong. So the last 4-year stretch that we had, this is more 5 years, but 2002 to 2007, we had an 11-year stretch from 2009 to 2020. Then we had COVID. But 2022, we had 21%, 2023, then 34%, then 12%, and now we're looking for year 4 from the absolute bottom. And on average, it tends to be higher about 85% of the time with a median gain of 14%. Which means we're probably pushing 77, 7,800 if we get there. Is oil spiking based on what Trump said? Probably. Yep, oil back at 89. It's not back over 90, which is good. But it's still up there. S&P, there's your low of the day, 706, just lost 707. Let's see how low this one continues to go. Are we still red on the year? No, we're up, well, based on today's price action, we're now up, I think, 2%. No, 3.5. We're still up 3.5 for the year. If we actually flip green by the end of the day, and we keep this rally going, dude, all we need is 710 to keep this rally going 14 days in a row. Maybe. David says my birthday's on Thursday. Tane says my birthday was April 16th. Oh, so it was last Friday. So we have a lot of birthdays. Livia says July 12th. Amit's getting old fast. Yeah, dude. I'm going to be 29 in October. It's going to be crazy. Last year of the 20s left. Last year of the 20s. Oh, wow. A lot of you guys had April birthday. Why don't you guys say in the chat when you have your birthday? bunch of people had it on the 16th. Rachel said I turned 30 today. Well, Rachel, I will join you in a year and a half. I'll be there. Dirty 30. 30 years old. Obviously, if you're much older, 30 feels young. But I feel like as you're approaching 30, it doesn't feel young because, young is more like 18, 19, 20. When you're leaving your 20s and you're entering your 30s, I feel like you're like definitively not objectively young anymore. Even if in the grand scheme of things, you probably are. But we all will be there. I will be there soon as well. Okay, what other macro stuff do we have? So we have this Trump thing about freaking not closing the Strait of Hormuz. We talked about a lot of these macro stats. Markets are slightly red. We didn't have that many crazy things happen over the weekend, to be honest. We talked about the MRVL stuff, the ASTS. Oh, Dario. So freaking the U.S. government, they're using Anthropic. Lots of reporting that the NSA is working with this Mythos model. And you're seeing a lot more of the federal government, even though they're not, not happy with Anthropic because of the supply chain risk. Even Trump, he was asked about it and he just walked away. But it does look like their model is becoming more relevant.
Reporting today that there's still, Iran says there's significant differences.
Well, there could be. Let's see what happens. If there are, we'll have to straighten it out. But I don't think there's too many significant differences.
On the blockade, Mr. President, what will it take to end the blockade?
When the agreement is signed, the blockade ends. As soon as the agreement gets signed, that's when the blockade ends.
Did Anthropic have a meeting at the White House?
Who?
Sir, Anthropic?
I have no idea.
On Cuba, Mr. President, is Cuba next?
So Trump refused to talk about Anthropic, but it does seem like they are picking up more steam in the administration. I mean, the tech might just be too important to ignore, quite frankly. And, the U.S. government would rather work with them versus not work with them. 707 again on the S&P. Literally the day after I turned 30, I had back and knee issues. Yeah, I feel like that's also kind of inevitable. I feel like our kids, when they get to that age, based on the advancements of AI and drug discovery, there's going to be a lot of different ways that they don't have to deal with the, general parts of aging, which is that your body starts to slow down a bit. But obviously that'll take more time to have a lot more of those discoveries. Amcor 68.97. Micron getting hit 439 right here. Not sure why. Micron going down right now. But that is indeed red. Mitt, I enjoyed your podcast with you and Steve. Do more like that. Yeah, a thank you to everyone who watched that pod. I really enjoyed doing it. Steve enjoyed doing it as well. Based on the comments we saw, I think people loved it. I don't think we need a guest. When we have a really good guest, we'll have a good guest on. But I think in general, just me and him going back and forth covering all the news, I really enjoyed it. And it felt fun to do that podcast versus having to interview a guest. So we will try. We have a couple of guest episodes we already recorded, so we'll put those out. But we're going to try to reserve the guest episodes for a really, really big name, and then every week just go back and forth ourselves. So I think that is the right format as we go forward from here. Micron 438. That one's still red. SanDisk as well. A little red right here. Rob says, Amit, I found out I'm having my third child today. Wow, super scared, but they are the first Trump account. Love you, brother. That's incredible, dude. Congrats. Congrats. They're going to be the first Trump account recipient. There you go. They're going to be tracking the S&P as soon as they're born. 3 kids. That's amazing. That's the number in my head. I want to have 3 kids. I want to have 2 girls and 1 boy. That's my goal. I want a big old family, 2 girls and 1 boy. That still is the ultimate dream, to have a massive family. And I want 2 dogs, 2 big-ass dogs, 3 kids. That's what we got to do. Robin at 88.50. 88.50. Admit you need to like girls for that. I understand. I realize there has to be a girl involved. in order for that dream to come true. Wow, dude, look at all these puts that came in before Trump gave those Bloomberg quotes. You had almost $12 million of people buying Friday expiring puts for 700 strikes. Goodness gracious. The amount of people that somehow know before it happens is just crazy. And we talked about it a little bit on Friday, but it is very obvious that traders knew that Trump was going to basically pump the markets on Friday because the shorts on oil went pretty crazy. If you take a look at this chart right here, I mean, this thing is unbelievable, dude. So at 8:24, this is on Friday, a trader bought 325 million worth of S&P futures. At 8:45, Iran's foreign minister said the Strait of Hormuz is completely open. And then at 12:45, the stock market hit a record high. And on top of that, you had people dump 750 million of Brent futures at, I think this was 7:45. And an hour later, you had the Strait of Hormuz completely open. And then you had the weirdest thing, the absolute weirdest thing happen on last night, which is this Iranian parliament speaker who keeps talking about like buying the dip or not buying the dip and like vibe trading and all this stuff. He commented on everything happening yesterday. And it was a little weird what he said. Vibe trading digital oil is like vibe hedging and treasuries during Hormuz risk off. Both share one house of cards that works on paper. The difference, oil at least has dated Brent treasuries vibes all the way down. And then this thing that he wrote at the bottom, this is a Bloomberg terminal command. EUCRBRDT index GP go. Like, who the hell is this guy? Like, what is this? What? I feel like this guy's making so much money from this entire, and he's like trying to share the knowledge or something. It is absolutely crazy. There is news that the SEC is going to investigate them. But hold on, Paul Atkins was live this morning. I wonder if they asked him about that. Let's see. I don't have that much faith the SEC is going to investigate. And if they do, maybe it's important. Let's see if they asked him about this today.
So that will bring them from offshore, where people fled, to come back to the United States to really work on their products. And then second, to clarify things. SEC was very opaque as to how it would approach crypto and other things. We've clarified it with the CFTC. We had an interpretative release with focusing on defining tokenized securities versus other digital assets that are commodities. And finally, to transform, to focus on making our rule book fit for purpose so that we can then make IPOs great again and embellish and enhance our.
Well, let me ask you about the IPOs great again, because this is probably going to be a huge year potentially for IPOs.
Exactly.
SpaceX, possibly OpenAI, Anthropic. The question is whether you think that.
Let me fast forward to this part. I think at around 6:40, he asks him about manipulation here.
Right. Let me ask you a question about enforcement and how you're thinking about enforcement today. One of the headlines we see all the time is you see the president make remarks and the market moves. And oftentimes we see headlines the next day that actually there was somebody or a group of people who seemed to get in on the trade, if you will, prior to the president's comments, but typically very closely related. Are you investigating that?
Well, I can't talk about any particular matter, but just say that investor protection and focusing on market manipulation to stop market manipulation is very important to me, and obviously to the SEC as part of our remit for investor protection and for having orderly, fair, and efficient markets. So that is in our DNA, and so with respect to some of these prediction markets and the contracts that are on them, the event contracts.
He was not asked about prediction markets. He was asked about manipulation on headlines. He'd rather talk about prediction markets than that. Dude, the SEC is not doing shit about this. They're not doing anything.
Most of that is on the commodity side, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, where my former colleague Mike Seelig is now chairman. there. So I know that's important to him. I know that and with respect to securities markets, obviously insider trading and market manipulation is very important.
Would you, though, investigate people who are either in the administration or other people in Washington who could have access to this? I only say this because there've been so many instances. Look, the president makes certain comments on social and others, and the market moves in big ways. Much more so if you actually go back. Someone did a look back at different presidents. I mean, this president is unique in terms of his ability to, frankly, move the market. And it appears almost every time that there is some instance of trading prior to it.
Right. So
and in terms of the credibility of the markets, how you think about that?
Well, things like that are disturbing. And again, I can't talk to any particular investigation, but we are examining that area. And these prediction markets, it's...
Hold on. How did he go back to prediction markets? That's not just me, right? Like, Andrew asked a really pointed question, and his response was, it's disturbing, but anyway, prediction markets. That is crazy, bro.
Disturbing. And again, I can't talk to any particular investigation, but we are examining that area. And these prediction markets, it's they are the traceability of the transactions, is there. And so let's just say that between the Department of Justice.
The manipulation's not happening on prediction market. I mean, it is, but like the manipulation is happening in the futures market, in the stock market itself, in the option flows, minutes before Trump says something. This has nothing to do with prediction markets. The SEC is not going to do anything about this, guys. It's obvious. The SEC is not doing anything about this.
The CFTC and us, we're focused on that. Jay Clayton is here in the Southern District of New York as U.S. Attorney. He and I have known each other for years. We talk a lot, regularly, and then ad hoc about issues. So
you mentioned prediction markets. Interestingly, your predecessor, Gary Gensler, was.
Okay, yeah. Like, if you think the SEC is going to investigate Don Jr. or Barron, no, it's not happening, bro. It's not happening. I mean, Paul Atkins all but said he's not going to do anything about it in the way that he just spoke about it. Look, if you can't beat the game, then the most we can do is try to benefit from this. And the only way to benefit, quite frankly, is to kind of take a look at what's happening under the hood in the option flows and the derivatives market, and then see if we can position ourselves for it. Obviously, no one here will actually be able to get that type of information unless you know the people with the information, which is a very elite club. And quite frankly, I don't think there's that many people benefiting from it outside of them. But it's just obvious to me that they're benefiting. Obvious. Like, we've seen way too many coincidences of option flows that come in that are so exactly rooted in the right direction, and that makes, and they're not even hiding it, dude. We're talking about like $500-600 million bets. It's not like a couple thousand, couple 100,000. Like, it's just in plain sight. There it is. Orbs is dumping. Orbs is dumping 9%. That is down. That is indeed down. Well, which by the way, terrible if that's up 1% a day. The risk is for Robinhood and the prediction markets that if the Democrats win and they just shut this thing down, like they get a new CFTC and they just complete, like, that is a big risk for Polymarket, Kalshi, Robinhood, Coinbase, all those companies. Because right now this administration is basically like, do whatever you want. It's obvious. They're like, do whatever you want as long as it's, not abhorrently illegal. You can get away with it. And so that is a tail risk if you have a new administration that just really ratchets down on the laissez-faire attitude that this administration has on these different financial products. Nebius 157, Ondas trying to go back for 11. Trying to go back for 11. Yeah, he kept flipping to prediction markets. It's like that's the only thing he wants to talk about. And then he said, I'm not at liberty to talk about this stuff. It's like, hold on, is there an active investigation where you're actively trying to figure out this stuff? Or are you about to go get lunch and go about your day, but you're using the disguise of I'm not allowed to talk about it because I'm the SEC chair as a way to not talk about it? I feel like it's the latter over the former. If you had $10,000, what would you do with it? Okay, so let's end the stream on that question. Question to the chat. If you have $10,000 right now, what would you do with it? What would you do with that 10K? I think that'll end us out on the day. S&P 706, low of the day. Is hopefully when I come back by the market close, this is different. Until then, it looks like this Trump lack of ceasefire extension is going to keep us red. And if we end the 13-day stretch here, then it is what it is on the green. 0 DTE TQQQ. You know, if Trump pivots by the end of the day, maybe that works. Pay my taxes. That's a good question. Micron. I don't know why Micron's down here. Oh, hold on. I forgot to even show you guys the Micron stat. This stat was crazy over the weekend. Some of you guys might have seen it already. But do you guys know that Micron has contributed to over 50% of the S&P 500 EPS revision since the start of the war? So you've had Exxon contribute 14%, Chevron 10%, Broadcom 10%, SanDisk 3%, Oxy 4%, Vertiv 3%. Micron, out of all the companies in the S&P 500, are contributing to 51% of the revision on the expectations, which I think is $323 a share by the end of the year for the S&P. So this is a very important company. Like, it is carrying the S&P right now in terms of the expected EPS growth because, again, their growth is just crazy. It's up 93% since February 27th. And so, again, I don't know if the stock is going to keep moving, but they are expected to grow like crazy. And if you get any forward multiple expansion on that growth, which right now I think is like 7-10 times forward PE, Micron's probably going up. But the question is going to be, can they keep up that growth? Okay, I see a lot of people say Tesla, Grab, Iran, Hood. I mean, quite frankly, if we're in a bull market, you put 10,000 in any of these major stocks, they should do well. I don't know. It depends on the, do you want to do 10 stocks with 1,000 or one stock with 10,000? I think that's the core question. And then going into earnings, I think you want to ask yourself, all right, which company do I think I'm confident can beat on earnings, expand their multiple, and maybe get back to where they were before the drop? Maybe Reddit, even though Reddit's had a big move. Maybe Meta's down from 740, but Meta's had a big move. So the question here is which one is undervalued enough going into earnings that can get re-rated back to a reversion to the mean, which is kind of what I would think about if I had that 10,000 cash in one spot. All right, word of the day. Word of the day. Let's see what we got. Or maybe puts if this war is going to continue. Maybe the 10,000 needs to be in puts. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. Okay, word of the day. Inured. Accustomed to something unpleasant, especially through repeated exposure. After years in the market, he became inured to volatility. It no longer shook him. I don't think I've heard this word before. Inured. I feel like I'm saying it correctly. Is this even a word? Where is the definition for this? Merriam-Webster. Let's see how they pronounce it.
Inure.
Inure. Okay, they're stressing the U. They're stressing the U. Inure. To accustomed to accept something undesirable. Okay, hopefully both sides will be inured by this deal. They both might not want to accept the premises of the deal, but we kind of need both of them to come to the table. Get this job done. All right, I'll be back on the market close. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We will keep going from here. Either the rally ends today after 13 days or on 420. We continue to keep this going for a 14th day. Let's see. I don't think it's completely out of the question that we could flip green by the end of the day. Seems a bit unlikely here, but if we do, I'll see it'd be very fun if we could keep this rally going. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you guys on the market close, and we'll go from there. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.